With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Time to close the books on the 2022 Season 4 Precision Racing League Tuesday night GT3 Bonanza, and what better place to do it at a brand new track to the series where chaos and carnage is sure to be expected. Hello everyone and welcome along to the Championship Showdown for the Precision Racing League GT3 Sprint and GT3 Fix Series. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to have your company here on RaceSpotTV. Alongside me is the voice of the PRL, the one, the only Joey Tebben. And Joey, I mean, we're coming off already some exciting championship showdowns for the Precision Racing League, but this one, of course, going to be very interesting because Rudskogen, it's tight and twisty, and it's unfamiliar to the teams and to the drivers.
Yeah, that's the big thing here. Both championships in the GT3 Fixed and GT3 Sprint Series are more or less decided, but, you know, that kind of opens up the door. The champion-elect can go a little bit slow, and that might open the door for a burgeoning new driver, someone who might finally have an aha moment, and there will be plenty of Gar stories to tell, but it's a new track, so anything can happen. We'll go Norwegian style.
And of course, this is one of the only round that you cannot drop in the championship. 10 rounds, and of course, one of the previous 9 can be excluded. This is the one that you've got to deliver, you've got to perform in, Joey.
That's absolutely correct. That is why Vincent Trepanier in the Sprint Series hasn't technically clinched the championship. He still has to finish the race and has to make sure Diego Morales doesn't win the race, but that's basically his only job coming up, and I think Vincent will be here. He will finish the race. He will lock up that championship, but that's his only job.
Plenty of action to come. Let's talk about the schedule before we get underway, because it's been an interesting ride, and I mean, Joey, it started off in spectacular fashion at America's National Park of Speed, Road America.
And Rudskogen at the end here is kind of a return to what we saw in the midsection of the season. We went to Laguna Seca, Snetterton, Barcelona, and Oschersleben in succession. A lot of tracks where it was very difficult to pass. We went to a few Grade 1 tracks at the old Motegi Road course and Coda and Suzuka, and of course the old classic American race tracks at Road America and Road Atlanta. It's been a good diversity on the schedule, but the top drivers in each of these series have kind of mastered every single type of track. Trepanier and Michael Terrafino here in the Fixed Series have found ways to drive their BMWs and Porsches at the head of the field at every single track, from the tight and twisty tracks to the wide open straight line speed fests.
And of course, let's emphasize the fact that first up, it's the Fixed Series, Joey, where the setup that you are provided is the setup that you must deal with, and it's a very different complexion too in the Sprint Series later on, where drivers can tweak the cars a little bit more to their own likings.
Exactly right. In the Sprint Series, it tends to be a little bit more of a Porsche fest. Even with the open setups, that seems to be the car that everybody wants to go with, but it's actually in the Fixed Series that comes up first, where the setups don't change, so we seem to see a little bit more diversity. Of course, the Porsches are still the car of choice. We saw Kenny Duval get his first win in the Porsche last week, Michael Terrafino, your championship winner, who's already clinched it, he's been dominating a BMW all season. So you can definitely drive multiple cars as long as they fit to your preference.
Yeah, let's talk about the championship standings very quickly now. Floyd Kerr has had two things that are playing out in his disadvantage. One was the technical failure that he had back at round 2 at the Twin Ring Motegi, but also the fact that he's changed cars over the course of the season gives you a 20-point penalty, and he runs 46 points back from Michael Terrafino. Championship all but secure for Team Beef's Terrafino, who will be looking to add to the 4 wins and 6 pole positions that he's had in the 9 races so far. Tie for third, Gary Brown, Nick Silver, and Sully Saad. Roy Brown not far behind. Plenty of excitement still to look at when we talk about the Drivers' Championship. Let's talk, though, about the Team Championship, Joey, because it's an interesting one, not for the front, but a little bit further back. Team Beef have run away, of course, led by Michael Terrafino. Vulture Motorsports North, as well as We Race Esports, Keeping It Real, SRT, and Cloud Valve, have all showed speed over the course of the last 10 races.
Yeah, they've all lacked the kind of 3-driver armada that you need to fight for a championship. Team Beef, of course, a lot of their points, or most of their points, have come from Michael Terrafino, who's clinched the championship with 1 round to go. But Glenn Vanko has been there picking up the points when Roy Brown hasn't. And, of course, Roy Brown has had a podium this season for the first time. He has had a ton of speed, and Team Beef have just been the most consistent of anybody. Vulture Motorsports, they've just kind of had one driver on both of their teams who's really been picking up the points. The others have been in contention at certain races, but they just haven't been quite as consistent as the Team Beef armada, and that's why there's an unassailable 85-point gap between the two of them.
Rookie mistake from myself, I will admit it. I had myself muted and I was trying to talk. Qualifying is underway. Before we get underway with on-track coverage, though, let's talk to you about those that make all of this possible, starting with the Virtual Competition Organization. Whether it's blurring the lines between the virtual and reality with the VCO Pro Sim Series, or bringing sim racing's best around the sim racing universe in the Esports Racing League, VCO continues to push the boundaries of esports racing. Follow along at twitch.tv/VCO Esports. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount using the Precision 5 coupon code. RaceLab helps you to improve your driving skills. With modern overlays, race statistics, and native VR integration, you can get the best out of iRacing. Start using it now for free at racelab.app. Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. And NinjaTrader, ready to compete against the financial markets. Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. We talked about how, or you talked about how, Joey, this track is similar in nature to some of the tracks we visited in the mid part of the season. And what does that mean? It means qualifying towards the front is going to be important.
Yeah, perhaps more important than any of those other tracks. Qualifying at Rudskogen is going to be extremely important. It's very, very difficult to pass here. I'm not going to say it's impossible, because this is another track similar to Oschersleben where mistakes are going to be punished pretty heavily. So that's going to be where the majority of passes, I think, are going to be made. It's not necessarily going to be a wheel-to-wheel battle up front. You're not going to see people sending dives anywhere, because there's very few corners where you can actually do that. But the race will be made by not making any mistakes, by just keeping control of the vehicle, not throwing it off the road, not opening up that door, because as long as you have it on the road, you can do a pretty good job of holding everybody back.
Michael Terrafino back to the top, but by 0.02 of a second. He steals it away from Gary Brown, who's on to his final lap in this qualifying session and working his way through the middle to late stages of the lap. Benchmark currently a 1:18.554. The top 5 split by under 1/10 of a second. A second separates the top 17 machines. Gary Brown battling for third in the championship with Nick Silver in the Keeping It Real Esports Porsche. Has to watch these lines in qualifying, tentative and ginger on the power through the final corner though, and onto the main straight, using as much of the track as he's allowed to get away with. A 118.556 to beat, and he will improve. A 118.498. It's Gary Brown back to the top.
Gary Brown's trying to get Michael Terrafino off of his game here. He doesn't want Terrafino to get 7 poles in a season. He's not going to let that happen. He wants to get his first pole. And Eric Luke is on the pace as well. He has been kind of on a part-time this season, but he's had a lot of pace in those part-times that he's been around. Sully Saad, of course, really showed us a lot of promise at Coda. Could have won that race. Didn't quite get it done. Still finished second, though. Looks to be a little bit wide through the midsection of the final corner here. It's a very, very long corner. It's deceptively long. You want to get in the throttle earlier than you really can, but you absolutely can't. It was clean out of the final corner, though. He does improve. It's not enough to improve on P6, though. As we go back to Eric Luke now, this is one of the most difficult parts of the track, under or going up the S's, rather, and then coming down into turn 10. This is going to be one of the best overtaking opportunities on the track. It's not a great overtaking opportunity, but it does exist.
Yeah, and he's the only driver, I think, still with the potential to try and challenge here, with most drivers, I think, already done with all 4 of their qualifying attempts. Andrew Rasmussen has done 3, but I don't think has enough time to head back out after being in pit lane to get a lap time in. So if there's going to be a challenge with 5,000s at the front, it's here and it's now from Eric Luke in the 709. Now takes a slightly longer distance to the line, and so he will not improve. But my word, look at these margins in qualifying, Joey.
It's a very, very short lap, so it's understandable that the margins are pretty low here, but I honestly did not expect them to be as close as they would be. This is a very difficult track when you're driving anything, as Eric Kalaga's just found out there at the bottom of the hill. That's a very, very high-speed braking zone there. You're trying to carry as much speed through turn 3 as you possibly can, but you have to be ready to brake for turn 4. And if you overextend turn 3 just a little bit, there's a little bit of a transition onto the exit asphalt there, and that'll loop you around.
And so I think that's basically qualifying in the books. Like I said, most drivers have already completed all 4 laps and are now using the opportunity to get some final practice in, because again, we'll re-emphasize, for so many of these drivers, this is new and unfamiliar. It's not a track, Joey, that many of them will even have watched a race at in the real world before, so it's very much a trial by fire and learning on the job.
Yeah, unless they're fans of, like, local Scandinavian touring car series or tiny lower formula series, you probably haven't seen a race at Rudskogen in real life before, but I'm sure some of them drove it when it first came out. There were a lot of those, like, Week 13 series, those little tiny formula car series that went out in here. We had the commentators race here a couple of months ago in the IRO4 cars, which were kind of well suited to this, but these GT3 cars, some might say they're a little bit too big for this track. I think they're about at the limit of how big of a car you can put on this track. Some thought that Oschersleben was too big or too small for these cars, and that was a pretty good race as well.
It was a good race. I did enjoy the tension there as well, although the thing about Oschersleben to remember, Joey, is just how many drivers had issues there. So is that something that we're going to see replicated here? Qualifying is now in the books for the final time this season, and Gary Brown will prevent Michael Terrafino from taking yet another pole position in the season. It's time to go racing for the championship showdown. Let's run you down through the starting grid here at one of iRacing's newest tracks, Rudskogen, which will challenge and I'm sure terrify the drivers in equal measures. It's the first pole position of the season for Gary Brown in that number 49. Eric Luke alongside, only 5,000 off the pace, while Michael Terrafino will be looking to survive in its coronation drive at the end of the championship. Kenny Duval, Andrew Rasmussen and Sully Saad make up the rest of the top 6, mostly dominated once again by the Porsche 911s, but a Ferrari for Dale Peterson back along with Matt Scherf and some new colors in that number 43. Brandon Six and Jeff Carollo make up the rest of the top 10. It's Greg Doucette, not in a BMW this time, but in a Porsche, while Steven Martinez in that Vulture Motorsports number 53 shares row 6. Jad Khalife, then Ryan Luna 13th and 14th, with Regan Chandler, the best of the Chandlers here in Go Fast Time, Rodrigo Morales, Nick Silver and Eric Kulaga. The rest of row 8 and 9, Baron Glover and Ryan Chandler bookend the top 20. Mark Fahl, Roy Brown, Glenn Vanko and Chris Colantonio 21st through 24th. It's a good job Team Beef have the championship secured when they're that mired back in the pack. Dinsmore, Macaulay, Amos, Kulaga, Fleischmann and Hoskins, the top 30, with just a handful more potentially to go. No, that's it. Only 30 cars in this field, and maybe that's a good thing, Joey, because maybe that's a little less drama than we would have had with the numbers from earlier this season.
Yeah, I can't even think to imagine what it would be like with 55 cars at Rudskogen. We say only 30 cars for that exact reason. It's about half what the limit was previously this season, so it's a little bit more of a sane amount of cars to put around this track, but it is still quite a large field to put at a small track like this, and everybody's going to have to take that into consideration once pit strategy time comes around. If one of these drivers does make a mistake in the opening laps, which is so easy to do around here, you're going to have a ton of work to do. Even with only 30 cars, it's a track where it's not easy to pass. It's not an easy place to make your way through the field.
So these drivers will get ready for a 35-minute race. Now, again, remember that we do have limited fuel tanks. The cap is about 40%, and with GT3 cars usually going at around an hour on the fuel, you can make your numbers from there. And of course, Joey, one thing that I think is significant in some ways is earlier today announced that these GT3 cars are going to undergo a significant overhaul in an upcoming iRacing update to be dropped to all of these drivers in just a few weeks. So any momentum, whether it's in this fixed or the sprint series that these drivers have, well, throw it out the window and start from a fresh slate come 2 or 3 weeks from now. This is all just about going out there and having some fun.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just writing off these GT3 rules on iRacing, essentially, because we're going to get the new damage model first and foremost. That's always great, but we're also going to get a new tire model, which is going to be completely different to drive. They've been saying it's going to put it back in the driver's hands, all sorts of that kind of thing. No matter what, it's going to be a new way of driving that these drivers are going to have to learn. I guess that kind of favors some of the drivers who still know how to drive this tire model. You can't necessarily slow a fast driver down, but there may be some drivers who are kind of uncomfortable on this tire model that might find the updated car a little bit more to their liking, and it might work out for them.
I did hear a bit of banging in the background, by the way. Not sure if we... Oh, yeah, they definitely got some damage there, not just on the front of that Ferrari, but potentially on some of the other machines as well. Already some drama to close out the season. It would not be a Tuesday night GT3 bonanza, though, here for the Precision Racing League without some sort of shenanigans. We're here at Norway's oldest asphalt racing circuit, opened back in 1990. It joined iRacing just a handful of months ago. Today it hosts the season finale for the 2022 Season 4 Precision Racing League GT3 Fix Series, and Gary Brown picks up the throttle, and immediately Eric Luke is swarmed on the run to turn 1. Terrafino climbs his way up into second as Luke sees behind him Rasmussen spun through the opening corner. A bit of drama to start this one off.
Rasmussen has somehow saved that. I think he might have gotten straightened out by Kenny Duval, who ended up spinning him there, so he didn't lose as much as he could have, but that's turn 1 for you. It pinches out into turn 2, and Rasmussen had Duval to his inside. Now he's got Sully Saad to his inside. He's probably having flashbacks, but he's going to clear him into turn 4.
Cold tires as well playing a bit of a factor here, as you saw nervousness on Sully Saad's car as they now work through the chicane, and Rasmussen trying to just stymie the bleeding. Has only lost 1 position in the grand scheme of things, as, whoa, that's a puff of smoke, and I think that's Mark File that's gone around.
Yeah, that was Mark File in the background, so 1 Clow Valve driver already down. It's usually Kenny Duval that has the bad luck, but after he finally got his first win last week in Suzuka, maybe the Mark File luck is now the Kenny Duval luck. Everything's turned around from Kenny. He's having good luck now, and his teammate has to pick up the load.
Look how much they're pushing track limits as well when it comes to this opening lap. Bit of action back in the pack as Khalife, Luna, and Corolla all duke it out side by side, as behind them Roy Brown has gone around. So a couple of victims on the opening lap, but at the front it is Gary Brown that converts pole to the lead in front of the champion-elect Michael Terrafino. Eric Luke slides from 2nd to 3rd behind Duval, Scherf, Rasmussen, Saad, Peterson, 6 Martinez, the top 10. It's Matt Scherf who's made up the most ground, though in the top 10 on the opening lap, plus 3 into 5th.
And our friends in the YouTube chat will always tell us that Matt Scherf doesn't have 1 top 10, doesn't have 2 top 10s. He has 3 top 10s, and this could be his first top 5. Might be even better, because Michael Terrafino is off the road, and Rasmussen's off again as well.
Chaos! What did we say about new tracks? And again, very similar to what we had at Oschersleben, where basically the entirety of the field at some point or another, Joey, it seemed like had some sort of drama, whether it was self-inflicted with traffic or just racing hard.
This and Barcelona are actually two pretty similar tracks, so I guess it's understandable that, you know, two similar events can happen to those two tracks. And Terrafino goes around at turn 10. The BMW, the rear end, it likes to loop around like that sometimes, but that's a weird place to loop it around at a 90-degree corner like that, and he has to wait for the whole field to go by.
Yeah, and that's where we saw some of the Cloud Valve drivers really pushing the limits of the track on lap number 1. Now, this is worst case scenario for Terrafino in terms of this race, but again, with the championship basically secured, it's not going to matter too much as Jeff Carollo's also gone off the track, but meanwhile, up into the opening corner, Duval and Scherf side by side. It's allowed Gary Brown and Eric Luke to run away. The top two have almost 4 seconds of separation behind them.
It's a little bit of a Porsche fest here for P3. Matt Scherf, he sees his first podium on the line. He was really fighting Kenny Duval there through the final corner, but he actually ended up slowing himself down, trying to fight with him through turn 2. Did not maximize his exit there coming down the hill. He's able to recover through 3 and 4. He's going to keep it in the train, but it is a Porsche sandwich here with Duval and Scherf and Saad. They all want that podium. Duval's made a mistake earlier in this race, and he's got two very, very pressureful drivers behind him, if that's a word. But let's see what happened on lap 1.
Yeah, let's try and pick this one out. We're going to start what happens with Mark File as they're basically fanning out 3 wide, and he commits to the inside contact with Cole Antonio, and I get the sense maybe cold tires playing a little bit of a factor there. The contact with a BMW that we saw as well. Now, Roy Brown, I think the second bit of drama in his Team Beef Porsche, and, well, side by side with an Audi. What's going to happen here?
Oh, he rides over the curb. He does Tony Hawk Ollie over the curb, and that lifts the Porsche up. It spins around. There's tires there. That's one of the few places where there's close walls. There's a lot of these asphalt runoff C's, but Roy Brown did not find that through turn 3 again. Andrew Rasmussen didn't even go onto the runoff there. He didn't even find the transition. He just lost it on the little bit of elevation change there.
Yeah, and what happens to Terrafino? Rasmussen's we can understand. Oh, just too hot in, trying to carry too much speed in, and, well, that was a lot of pain that Terrafino then suffered, but sometimes when you have a season this good, you should be made to feel a little bit of pain. Jeff Carollo subsequently had his issue. Let's ride on board. Through
turn 13 here, then into turn 14. He just barely clips the inside curb there, the transition from the grass to the curb, and that instantly sets the Lamborghini around. There's no saving it in the middle of the corner there, and he, like Terrafino, has to let the whole field by here. He eventually rejoins, but Jeff Carollo and Michael Terrafino, two buddies from the first race of the season, they've got a lot of work to do here with 30 minutes to go. But I think that's a good thing. If you come into the championship finale with the championship on lock like Michael Terrafino did, you should be forced to start from the back. Give us some entertainment. Agreed.
Entertainment indeed. Baron Glover goes around, and again, the C's will part, and that same BMW that almost tagged one of our spun cars earlier has to take a voiding action, that is for sure. Already 5 minutes done, and settling down into a bit of a rhythm. Brown, Luke at the front. 4 seconds clear then of Duval, Scherf, Saad, who make up the rest of the top 5. Great start to this race in that 43 for Matt Scherf, plus 4 positions for him. Best start, though, so far, plus 7 for Cole Antonio, down in 17th position.
That's kind of a surprise from Cole Antonio, because he was in the mires of the field there, where all the drama was happening on lap 1, but somehow he managed to avoid all of it. He survived. He moved up his way through the order by 7 spots. I think that he was the driver on lap 1 whoever that was on lap 1 who spun. There's been so many people who have made mistakes that I've already forgotten, but he's avoided everything, and I guess it's kind of ironic that he's moved to the Crashin' Cowboys team now, but he is not indeed a Crashin' Cowboy like it was earlier this season.
Not yet, at the very least. Maybe he'll live up to that moniker in the closing stage of this race. Still a long, long way to go. A cycle of pit stops. Pit entry maybe not the most difficult compared to some of the other ones that we've been to, but by no means is it trivial out here in Norway. Hoskins and Brown go side by side as the Team Beef Porsche tries to work his way back up through the field, and Audi takes to the grass and will invoice Rudskogen for some lawn mower services. It's a tight and twisty track, though, and we have seen plenty of instances of where drivers have been willingly just running a little bit wide and pushing as hard as possible as Cole Antonio goes around. Now, is that the commentator's curse on you or me, Joey?
I don't think he technically crashed. I think he just spun, so I think we're both good.
I mean, technically a spin is a form of a crash. It's just one with a less terminal outcome. Now, it's the same place that Terrafino had his issue, and it's just, I think, over-committing on entry and being a little too aggressive. Let's ride on board.
Yeah, this is turn 12. It's all about that commitment. I think you can actually ride a little bit further to the right there. You do eventually get an off track if you go too far to the right and make it a little bit too wide of an entry, but Cole Antonio was a little bit further to the left than I think he probably should have been, and the second he turned in, the car was like, nope, I'm not doing this, you're going around. He finds himself in not the worst position in the world, but he does find himself in a heavy pack of drivers. All the drivers who have spun earlier in this race who are trying to move their way through the field, they've all found each other now for about 24th.
And I will say as well that when you're this far in the pack back, they are already, 30 seconds back from the leader. They will be cognizant of the fact that the more they fight, the more likely it is that they will definitely have to be dealt with in terms of lap traffic when it comes to your leaders over the course of this race. Let's not focus now on this battle for what is 24th position, at least for the time being. Let's check in with Ryan Chandler, because I know Joey missed out on this last week. He's missed the opportunity to focus on Ryan Chandler's glaucoma background.
It's back. It's always back. For some reason, his paint scheme is gone. I don't know what's up with that, but the old Ryan Chandler glaucoma background is all the same. He's got Chris Cole Antonio gloves as well for good measure, so maybe that'll give him some good luck here in the Mercedes. Although that might not be good luck without Chris Cole Antonio's race has gone so far. Ryan got out qualified by Regan. He's still getting beaten by Regan here, but we'll have to wait and see. Can he close that gap up? He's got about 1.5 seconds up to Kalaga, and then, or up to Silver rather, and then a little bit further up to Chandler. And is that Terrafino around again? I think it is.
That's a very slow Terrafino. Greg Doucette gets past Brandon Six, so he's taken to the Porsche like a duck takes to water. He's up now into the 8th position +3 for that Throttle Thursday number 85 machine. I must say though, it's a crying shame that Greg Doucette has shown up in a Porsche and there is no plaid on said Porsche.
I don't know, I might have to send old Greg a message here. We'll see. He might be one of those drivers who is like, oh, I totally had a plaid Porsche paint scheme. You just don't have it. But I don't know. Do I believe that? Do I believe he had the time to change the BMW to the Porsche? Who knows? But again, it's there in spirit.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't forget iRacing has a plaid Porsche that you could use. It's a click of a button away if you really want it. I'm really throwing poor Greg under the bus here. Let's see if we can pick up what happened then with Michael Terrafino on his run in through turns 1 and 2.
He hit Fleischmann.
But why is he going to take... Is there something else that's wrong?
I don't know what happened there. He hit Fleischmann, and then Fleischmann disappeared, and then Terrafino just kind of parked it on the edge of the road. So let's see what happens here into turn 1. I mean, I'd say Fleischmann kind of turned in there, and then Fleischmann gets vanished into the ether. He didn't get a penalty. He's still out on track. He didn't get disqualified, but that's just...
I mean, you look from
bizarre.
Up above, and Terrafino... I mean... He's more than inside of the curb, and yeah, that's I think lucky that it didn't end up worse on both sides, but it's a lot of lost time, unfortunately, in the camp of Michael Terrafino, who now runs penultimate in the field, 29th out of the 30 that are still out there on track, because no retirements, at least so far, knock on the wood. So we've looked at one of the Chandlers, but Ryan is not leading the battle of the Chandlers. That currently goes with Regan Chandler, although he is very much having to defend behind him as we take a look on board with the number 18.
See the bookshelf behind Regan Chandler once more. We can see his background in focus. I still don't have enough pixels per inch on my screen to read any of those titles. Maybe Norwegian Wood is back there by Murakami. That's the only relevant book I can think of. This is one of the few times, though, in all seriousness, that Regan has beaten Ryan this season, or has been beating him, rather, so be a little bit of a family rivalry here, especially with Thanksgiving come up. He'll have something to hold over his head at the Thanksgiving table.
Yeah, I was getting better at those GT3 cars until iRacing changed them. You're so lucky. So many interesting family things could go on. By the way, Duval is slipped behind Sully Saad. But remember, battle in the championship when it came down to that third spot between Brown and Nick Silver. Nick Silver's down in 17th spot. Gary Brown's up in first. Gary Brown looks like he's going to grab third in the championship.
Can't say anything too early, you know. We call him Downtown Gary Brown because there's been some times this season where he's had to drive his way back through the field. He's done some spectacular things in recovery drives. He's Uptown Gary Brown right now because he hasn't made any mistakes, but It's a new track. You can never write anything off until 23 minutes from now. Nick Silver's still holding on to hope. He probably isn't, because Gary Brown's his teammate. He kind of wants him to win, but he also kind of wants third in the championship.
Well, speaking of Nick Silver, down on pit lane, and the first outside of Baron Glover to come down onto pit lane. So 24 slow rolls his way through. Check in with your race leader. 1.2 splits Brown from Luke at the front of the field, and then of course the 7-second gap back to Matt Scherf. It is well and truly open up, but Gary Brown, just look how calm and confident the body language of that Porsche is. Remember, all the Porsches have identical setups. It's all about what the drivers are doing to get the most out of it, and that 49 has definitely managed to figure this machine out.
He's completely in control here, but my question is, once the old pit cycle comes around, is Eric Luke doing some shenanigans back there? Has he been saving a little bit more? He's been keeping within 1.2 seconds of Brown this whole time since the start of the race. It's barely extended, and on this last lap, Eric Luke has actually been 1/10 faster than Gary Brown. So I wonder if he has a little bit of pace in the tank. He's just holding that back, though, because he knows it's difficult to pass here, and he's going to try and make the move in the pits by saving a little bit of extra fuel.
Aaron Glover back down on the pit lane, by the way. I think trying to get some of his damage maybe repaired. Behind this duo at the front, it is a 4-car train. Scherfsad, Duval, and then Peterson in that number 6 as we jump on board with that Ferrari down the hill out of the opening complex of the lap, and then it's fast downhill sweeper. This track does, Joey, have quite a bit of everything. Faster corners, the more medium speed corners, and then even the slower speed corners. It's a nice little technical challenge for all-round drivers.
It's a very, very difficult track to nail. I've learned this from personal experience. Of course, I've only run here in anger in a tiny little open wheel car for that commentator race that I previously mentioned, but I know the GT3 cars are exceptionally difficult to bring around here, because it's kind of like you're driving around on a go-kart track with these cars. They are suited to it. They're plenty wide. You can make passes, but especially in that middle sector up through the S's, if you're forced to run too wide, it's very, very painful, because you have to be so careful. You have to walk on eggshells, basically, to make sure you're giving room in a part of the track that isn't 2 cars wide. It's almost impossible.
Sully Saad up in that 4th position. Looks like Jad Khalife will be the next car to dive down onto the pit lane. And again, remember, fuel window typically around the 60-minute marker in these GT3 machines, but of course, with the fuel tank limited to around 40% capacity, you're realistically looking at maybe 25 minutes, a little bit more if you save some fuel. So in this 35-minute race, with 20 minutes to go, it's about time if you want to try something different. In terms of something different, you were talking about Luke trying to fuel save. You can't afford to lose too much time. That gap now grows to 1.5 seconds. Dale Peterson, by the way, in that Ferrari, has almost lost ground to those in front. And I'm just looking at the lap times. Those front 2 just seem to be in a class of their own in the field here today, Joey.
Clearly they've figured something out here, because, like you said, 9 seconds over Matt Scherf. There's been a few mistakes in some of these drivers here fighting for thirds. That explains some of the gap, but other than that, even on that last lap, Brown and Luke were half a second faster than Scherf and the gang here. Kenny Duval thinks he's getting a little bit held up. He decides to come in. His teammate Jad Khalif, who pitted previously, came out at the back of the field about 2.8 seconds off Michael Kalaga, so there was clean track for him. I don't think there will be clean track for Kenny Duval, though, because he's going to find himself somewhere around 21st, 22nd. He might come out into traffic. That's the danger of pitting this early.
Looking at Brandon Six, who's had a good end to the season. I think it was Koto where we saw him running up towards the front of the field. And now here at Rudskogen to close things out as well. Andrew Rasmussen also down in pit lane along with Kenny Duval. Kenny Duval spends 6.8 seconds stationary. Where is that going to feed him out? Because I think crucially he does not want to end up in this exact situation, marred with some traffic as he rolls back to the racing surface.
Finds himself right behind Brian Hoskins. Not the worst driver to end up behind. Brian's usually pretty courteous. He can definitely let drivers by, but there's only so much you can do. Like I mentioned, this sector coming up right here in the uphill S's, you can only do so much to let drivers by. You basically can't once you're committed. So Kenny Duval is guaranteed to get held up by Brian Hoskins for a little bit here. I don't know where Brian can get out of the way. Maybe into the hairpin at turn 10 if he so chooses, but this is 4 position. Brian's got no reason to pull over, and there goes Brandon 6 over at turn 13.
Yeah, does that count as a commentator's curse on me? I think it does.
Maybe.
Seems about a slam dunk as you can get it. You're right about Duval still struggling to find his way on through as Brandon 6 immediately heads to the pit lane, after his incident out on track. And let's go ahead and take a look at that one. We look from up above. Already, I think, out of that turn 12 that's caught so many out. Is that turn 1, actually? I have no idea from that camera angle.
Yeah, that's turn 13.
Okay, I got it right the first time.
Because he's the 90-degree corner's back there, but that is really weird because he basically started losing it the second he started turning in. He didn't clip the curb in turn 13 like we saw whoever that was earlier. I think it was Rasmussen. No, it was Jeff Carollo. He was already losing it the second he turned in. And as always, with any of these GT3 cars, once it starts going around, the traction control gets very, very mad at you, and you cannot save it. So you've got to make sure you're on your game when you're on that instant turning.
Duval trying to put some pressure on to the back of Hoskins, and now a mistake out of that 520. A little bit compromised into the chicane, and this is really holding up the 63. The more laps he's stuck here, the less effective this undercut will be. In fact, it might even be costing him time relative to the likes of Matt Scherf, Sully Saad, running a 1:19.438 last time by. Let's see what the lap time will be for Kenny Duval.
That's exactly why I warned against coming in early. That's why I warn against that every week, because there's an instant that you can find yourself in traffic like that. I'm sure Kenny was looking at the relatives. I'm sure he was looking and probably thinking that there might have been a gap. And there was a gap, but that gap quickly came down because Kenny is just a faster driver than Brian Hoskins. But Brian can't get out of the way, especially where Kenny caught him there. I'm sure Brian doesn't want to hold up Kenny. I'm sure he doesn't want to hold him up in the battle for third, but it's a battle for position at a tight track, and Kenny's got nobody to blame but himself for putting himself in that position back there.
Got to throw the dice at it sometimes. Got to gamble. And as you mentioned, after a little bit of a look from Sully Saad, maybe a half-hearted look if we are being totally honest. Again, for Kenny Duval coming off the victory last time out, why not have a throw of the dice, if you will? Heading in, though, by the way, to the final 15 minutes of the season, Joey, for so many of these drivers. Of course, 20 minutes in this race, done and dusted. And again, I'll go back to that point that I said just before this race got underway. These cars will change quite significantly in the next year, or rather in the next build. So these drivers know that whatever they've got figured out now, they're going to have to sit down and do that once again. But that's where, like we always say, the ones that are the most adaptable, just like in the real world, will be able to figure this out the fastest.
I can guarantee everybody will be able to figure it out eventually, but it's just always a question. We've seen it on the oval side as well, with the new tire model, with the ways oval racing has changed. There's drivers who really excelled in previous models and previous ways of driving, and they kind of fell off once things were updated, and it goes the other way around as well. So it's impossible to tell who's going to really take an advantage here, but everybody's going to have to practice in those 3 weeks we have off between this season and next. We already have the track list out. That's on the PRL forums for all the drivers to look at, so they got to hunker down and learn that car very, very quickly so they can be ready once everything kicks off again in 3 weeks.
Get a nice little Thanksgiving break. What are you doing for Thanksgiving, Joey?
I wish I was going to Norway, but no, I'm getting driven over to Ohio tomorrow morning. We're leaving at noon. Gonna go visit the gang in Ohio, get some classic Thanksgiving foods. We don't have any mofongo stuffed turkeys, any special rice or anything, but it'll be good.
I'm just saying, by the way, your gang, surely they are just as entertaining as Rudskogen can be. Sully Saad, by the way, pit lane as the gap for the race lead has not just grown, but it's ballooned up above 2.6 seconds. Speaking of balloons, I wonder if Greg Doucette has tried to become a balloon, but we'll see what happens. Whoa, okay, so he's made the mistake. He's made another choice, and then has hit a wall quite hard.
Yeah, that was 99 red balloons go pop, I think, there. I think he made one mistake, and then he kind of gave up there, but I can understand that.
Days.
Oh, dear. Oh, he almost jumped back onto the front straight there. Was the throttle stuck? Was the throttle stuck from the very beginning, or did he just give up? I think he just gave up.
Yep, he was intentionally giving it a bit of jandal, I think, as the Australians would call it. Although maybe there was a technical failure and we just didn't know. We'll have to wait and see. Thomas Amos, the latest to now have an incident. One by one, they are starting to fall by flies. It's not in the same degree as to what... Ooh, that might be a technical failure.
Looks like the rear end might be a little bit jacked up on the left, but...
Well, I wonder if VR or monitor failure.
I hope not. I think that... Who was that? Was that Kalaga?
Thomas Amos, I think.
Thomas Amos. Old famous Amos. I haven't heard of him using VR, so I don't know. It's another mystery of Rudskogen here.
Now you're making me hungry for some cookies.
Yeah. You want some cookies for Thanksgiving?
I would like some cookies. Here comes, by the way, Ryan Luna into the safety of pit lane, followed in by Regan Chandler as that battle of the Chandlers continues to rage on. Remember, 75 Ryan, 18 Regan. Still waiting, of course, for your leaders to come on in, but we are getting to that mark where surely they will have to blink and dive their way on in, because we've almost done now, going on 24 minutes in this race.
Both of these drivers, I think, saw what happened to their old friend Kenny Duval when he came in early, and they're just trying to make sure that doesn't happen to them by literally coming in later than anybody else and making sure there's no traffic they can come out into. But for Gary Brown, he's been so fast that he's ended up in traffic because he's lapping the last driver on the lead lap right now. That is Joe McCauley in the number 15 BMW, who's going to eventually get out of the way after turn 14. Joe knows he's going to lap down. He gets out of the way. Didn't hold up Gary Brown too much there, but there's going to be a little bit more traffic for Gary Brown up the road, I think. That's not the last of it. Next up, there is a little bit of a gap. Nick Silver's about 13 seconds up the road, so Brown should be good until he comes into the pits.
The traffic will give and the traffic will take, though, when it comes to this battle for the lead, and you'd expect it to be a little bit more frequent potentially after we get through the pit stops and maybe those final 5 minutes. Opportunities will be present. Rodrigo Morales in the We Race Esports number 23 will head to pit lane as Ryan Chandler will dive in a lap after that 18 car, as one by one they all blink. Now, there's always one round of a championship, of a year rather, where GT3 cars and the iRacing official series, someone tries a miraculous fuel save. I think it was Long Beach this year. I don't think we've had any tracks in this season, Joey, where any drivers could have even thought about attempting the no-stop strategy.
I mean, honestly, this track here is the most Long Beach-esque. It's kind of Long Beach without the walls, but even here, it is... You can't do it. Even the Casey Kerwinist or the Sean Campbellist of drivers, you have to save so much fuel to be able to go all the way to the end here. I don't think it's going to be possible, but maybe somebody will throw something at the wind here. Throw some spaghetti at the wall. Throw some fuel in the tank. The likes of Matt Dinsmore or Steven Martinez, somebody like that who's probably not going to win the race otherwise. You might as well try and stretch a little bit and make it to the end. But I don't know if that's even going to be physically possible to think about.
Less than 10 minutes to go in the season. Michael Terrafino, by the way, is down in 25th. Will finish the championship on track in that position, but of course came into this one with the 46-point advantage. Floyd Kerr, the technical issue with his VR back at Motegi, of course, then the car switch as well. Could have been a lot closer, but Terrafino has very much, like we said, with 4 wins, 8 top 5s, and 6 pole positions coming into this one, he has been the fastest and most consistent driver this season.
Yeah, he didn't even have to show up tonight, but I'm sure he was telling myself, I'm the defending champion now. There's no way I'm going to miss out on a victory lap here, and I'm glad he did show up. It's not gone very well for him, but who cares? He's the champion. He can do whatever he wants.
Just trying to see how many drivers have competed over the course of this season. I think we've had upwards of almost 60 drivers in total as your leaders come in together. Have we hit the end of the window? Will everyone be in this time by? Only about 7 more drivers still owe us the pit stop. Brown Luke will lead in the likes of Sherf Peterson, Martinez. As for the final time, execution on pit lane is paramount.
Gary Brown came in with about a 2-second lead over Eric Luke. So basically, as long as everything just goes normal here in the pit stop, he should have this race on lock. It's going to be a little bit tougher for Eric Luke, actually, because he has one of the Mercedes from the back of the field in front of him. So that's going to be a very, very difficult pit exit for Eric Luke. He was slower in the box than Brown as well. So his life has gotten exceptionally difficult now. I think that's potentially Matt Dinsmore, who's come out right in front of Eric Luke, and Eric's hoping he gets out of the way as quickly as possible.
Check in behind them, the likes of Matt Scherf and Dale Peterson are trying to roll off of the pit lane and see where they cycle out in relation to Kenny Duval, and it's going to be closer than maybe we thought it was going to be. Given how much time Duval lost, he's right alongside with Scherf. Peterson fighting side by side with Saad, and now the question is, cold tires on the Ferrari, is it enough to hold off the challenge of the Porsche down the hill? Saad will stick the nose in there and try and squeeze a mistake out of Peterson, but the Ferrari holds on strong for now.
He's holding on strong on the outside, but Sully did force him a little bit wide. Sully's not going to be able to go side by side with him up through the S's here. He's certainly going to try, but he has to back out of it. Couldn't hold the momentum side by side with Dale Peterson there. Dale Peterson wins the Inter-D Peterson battle, by the way, tonight and this season, because Dave Peterson, he switched to that McLaren. I think he's gotten bored of it or something, because he's not here tonight. It's all Dale Peterson, and I think this would definitely be his first top 5 of the season. This has absolutely been more pace we've seen from Dale all season.
I did wonder where that fire-breathing McLaren was, by the way. It has been a shame to miss it. Can confirm it would be the first top 5 of the season for the Cloud Valve Racing North car of Dale Peterson. But Duval has had to come back down to the pit lane. Now, why is he coming down to the pit lane? I would suspect because of a penalty for the incident limit.
I think he was only in the box for 6.8 seconds, which is less than the rest of the field.
No, he's got a penalty though.
Yeah, well, let's see. Is he going to stop? Did he have a black flag?
Yes, that's what I mean. There is a black flag on his car. I've checked in the iRacing session. So, Kenny Duval.
He's not going to serve it, though, in the box. He can't serve the black flag if he stops. Does he have to come in again?
No. He's already made his stop. I think he was good on fuel. 1.9 stationary. Stop and go, I would assume.
I don't think you get a stop and go you get a drive-through for hitting the incident limit, though. So I think that is fuel. If he had a black flag, he might need to come through again. So I don't know what's going on for Kenny Duval. It's bad either way.
I see a black flag next to his name, so unless I'm being lied to by iRacing, I think there's a black flag still to be served. Check in with 7th, though, because there is a big old gaggle. Kenny Duval is actually out of this race. I'm not sure exactly what happened. We'll see if we can pick this one up. It's not really 7th. It's the battle for 6th, really, at this point in time. But my days, they have really stacked up. And yes, there's some separation, but by no means is this done and dusted.
And Jod Khalif is having his best race of the season. Steven Martinez is having his best race of the season. Ryan Luna is in the top 10 right now. I think Ryan Luna's previous best result before tonight was 30th. So this is incredible for Ryan Luna. He says, you know what, let's go to Rudskogen for all 10 weeks, because clearly he's figured something out here that's working very, very well for him. It's a wild card of a track. It's a place that not everybody has a lot of experience at, so I guess if some drivers have elected maybe practice this place a little bit more than others, they might have a little bit of an advantage here compared to the rest of the field, but it's definitely shuffled things up.
Final laps starting to wind themselves into fruition. Let's check in with Kenny Duval and see what happens. Oh, yep, I think that's the realization of I've still got the penalty. That's my season done and dusted.
Yeah, after Arjuna got gaslit by iRacing there, Kenny was not happy either.
Oh, he got disqualified, actually.
So he underfueled the car, he had a black flag that he needed to serve, and then he got disqualified. I think that's like a trifecta. You can't get worse than that.
Yeah, I'm trying. Hopefully we can figure out exactly what happened to him, but oh boy, what a way to finish. At the front of the field, though, it's 5 seconds that separates Brown from Luke, and, well, what a way to close things out from Gary Brown. Downtown Gary Brown will convert to victory lane, it would seem.
Yeah, first pole, first win. That's the way to do it, especially at a new track. Really just show up the rest of the field, put the fear in their eyes for next season. I'm interested to talk to Gary Brown after this, because he's kind of excelled at these tight tracks. At Barcelona, a place where you can't pass, he made a ton of passes. He was aggressive, he made contact with a few people, but he did make passes. He was spectacular. He's had pace at a lot of places this season, and he's finally put it all together tonight, and he's only got 3 more laps to go with a 6-second cushion. He has no pressure right now. He doesn't even have to push 100%. He can just coast home and enjoy the smells of Norway, and he'll have his first win.
Still, while he's enjoying the drive. It's a little bit more pressure-filled for those further back. There still is Martinez, Rasmussen hunting down Khalife as they plunge down the hill and onto the brakes and wind through the right-hander. You mentioned, of course, that you raced here earlier this year, Joey, in Formula 4 cars. And I think, like you mentioned, this is just a tough track for cars this big to be able to get the move done. It requires capitalizing on mistakes and sometimes drawing those mistakes out.
That's basically what you have to do. That's the only way to make a pass. Like I mentioned in the pre-race, there's not really passing zones necessarily. This is a track that was actually designed by Herman Tilke, and that's a guy where you normally expect his tracks to have a lot of passing zones. You think about Bahrain, you think about whatever else. Sepang, they've got a lot of long straights into heavy braking zones. That's what makes good passing in any car, let alone GT3 cars. But this is kind of designed to be a sort of a track day circuit. It's not necessarily a grade 1 racetrack, so it's great to drive. It's not very easy to pass. You do have to force mistakes out of people to make those passes.
It was selected as the main national motorsports facility back in, I think it was the mid-2000s, and that's when the redesign happened, and Herman Tilke got involved with things. Of course, they got a karting facility as well, so plenty of excitement around this track, and it fleshes out the European roster of tracks that iRacing has. And not every track is to be perfect for all cars. There are some tracks that will work better for some cars and others that will work better for others. It is as simple as that. Gary Brown, by the way, has, I think, already begun what will be the penultimate lap of this race. So in this battle for 6th, for example, they've got 2 laps to figure it out.
Personally, I think the schedule is already made for next season, so the season after that, I want to see a full field of GT3 cars at the new Porsche Experience Center at Hockenheim. You know, you can only spawn 6 cars there. You can only run a 6-car race there, but you can run a race there, and I want to see a full field of GT3s around the Porsche Experience Center. With that huge banked hairpin, that'd be incredible.
I was just thinking our friends at Porsche here at RaceSpotTV will be delighted to hear that. Mark Feil has spun it around, and I think that will be likely season done for him as he tries to wait for an opportunity to get it back onto track. Let's see as we look at our RaceSpotTV replay machine into turn 1. Was always having way too much speed there, and, well, luckily he slid his way off the track.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a race for the circular file for Mark Feil.
As a look from up above. Feil continues, though. We'll power around what will be the final laps of this race, because here comes Gary Brown. On to the final lap, but still with a 7-second advantage. What a way to close out the season.
The best way to close out the season. There's no better way to get your confidence up for the upcoming season in 3 weeks. I think Gary Brown will be back in this series. I don't know if he's going to move up to the Sprint Series next season, but he's got unfinished business to do in the Fixed Series. He's always had the pace this season. There's just been a few mistakes. He was the first driver to tell us that, but he's finally going to get a win on the board here, and that will be the best thing for his confidence, and definitely a championship run next season if he does come back.
It's going to be an exciting next season as well, with new cars and potentially for some of these drivers, some tracks to get to grips with as well. The ever-changing dynamic of iRacing will continue to throw challenges at these drivers that they will have to overcome. 5 top 5s on the season for Gary Brown, and now finally a victory. It's a victory that will secure him 3rd in the championship as well, but Brown will roar across the line to grab victory at Rudskogen to close the book on the 2022 Season 4 in the Precision Racing League GT3 Fixed Series. Behind him, it's going to be a long wait for Eric Luke, Matt Scherf, Dale Peterson, and then Sully Saad to round out the rest of the top 5. But a relatively quiet night here, at least to open things up at the front of the field, Joey.
But that is just an incredible top 10. There's so many drivers to talk about. Of course, Matt Scherf. Everybody in the chat is going to be ecstatic about that. There's nobody with more support on Tuesday nights than Matt Scherf, and he gets his first podium of the season. Dale Peterson, his best result of the season. John Khalif's best result of the season. Ryan Luna, 21 spots, better than his best result of the season. There's just a ton of great stories in the top 10 here, and Michael Terrafino, probably the best story of all. The champion, he's going to come home in 16th behind his teammate Roy Brown, but he doesn't care. He's the champion.
What a way to close the season. It was a dominant season, bar the final round. 4 wins, 8 top 5s, 6 pole positions. Gary Brown is the 2022 Season 4 Precision Racing League GT3 Fix Champion in his Team Beef BMW. What a season it has been in that number 94. Wait for the final cars to come across the line and get things into the books, but a great season, and again, it started with fireworks at Road America, Joey.
Probably the best race of the season at Road America. It really got us into things. It was spectacular to watch with Floyd Kerr and Carollo and Rasmussen going at it. Terrafino didn't even really have a starring role in race 1. We knew he had pace from last season. He was always up there. He had a pole, but he really just put himself on the scene from the second round onwards, and nobody could touch him. Floyd Kerr tried, had a little bit of bad luck, had a few mistakes himself. Nobody was more deserving than Michael Terrafino over all 10 of these weeks.
Prime USADA beef on that number 94. Let's run you down through your race results to close the season out for these drivers, and what a season it was. Porsche 1, 2, and 3, Brown, Luke, and Scherf grabbing spots on the podium. Matt Scherf working his way up 5 positions after qualifying, down in 8th. Behind Scherf, Peterson and Sard make up the rest of the top 5. Jad Khalife climbed 7 spots to get into 6th. Martinez, Rasmussen, Luna, and Morales make up the top 10. Like Joey mentioned, plenty of storylines to pick apart in those 10 names. Nick Silver, Regan Chandler, and Eric Kulaga then finished 11th, 12th, and 13th, with Ryan Chandler, Roy Brown, Michael Terrafino, Glenn Vanco, Joe McCauley, Chris Colantonio, and Brian Hoskins, the top 20. A bit of symmetry there as well for Team Beef, coming across the line 15th, 16th, and 17th on their way to the team championship as well. Brandon 6, Michael Kulaga, Matt Dinsmore, Baron Glover, and Jeff Carollo all finished 1 lap down. In front, though, of Mark Fahl, Kenny Duval, as well as Greg Doucette, Thomas Amos, and Jeff Fleischman. The 30 cars that went racing here to close out the season. Well, let's not dawdle around too long. Let's head straight down to the paddock and let's get our post-race interviews underway. Joey Tebman standing by with our race winner, Gary Brown.
Indeed, I am. Downtown Gary Brown, you're not downtown anymore. You started on pole, you led every single lap of the race, you never looked back.
Yeah,
I bet you love Rudskogen now.
Yeah, this was a fun track. I enjoyed this one all week practicing for it, so it was fun. Yeah, instead of saving the best for last, I saved the last for best, I guess.
Something like that. I don't know how that grammatically works, but I'll take your word for it. But do you think that little bit of extra practice actually gave you an advantage tonight? It's a new track. Some people probably haven't driven GT3 cars on this place before this week came around. Do you think that helped you?
Yeah, I mean, this track is pretty tricky. It takes a lot of patience. So I think if you just try to hop out there and go, you're going to probably not have that. There's a lot of turns where you're just kind of waiting for the car to grab before you get going again. So yeah, I think the practice was good, and the teammate, Vulture Motorsports guys, helped me out with a lot of, some team practice, so it's all good.
So next season, you've ended this season, you've saved the last for best, or whatever order you put it in. Are you coming back for next season? Are you looking at the championship after getting the first win on the board?
Yeah, I think I'm going to move up to the Open Series next season, so we'll see how that goes. I'm sure I'll be in the AM class over there, but it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I know Kerr's going over there as well, and one of my teammates is going to head over to the Open Series, and we'll see if I can, keep the winning alive. See how it goes.
Should be very exciting indeed. But congrats on your first pole, congrats on your first win, and we'll see you again in a couple weeks.
Hey, thank you guys very much. Really appreciate it. Great season.
It was a great season indeed, and Gary Brown certainly played a role in that. Looks like we got second place Eric Luke now as well for a Porsche 123. Another podium for you as well, Eric Luke. How did the race go for you tonight?
It was a very interesting race. Started off the race and I was hanging with the leaders, and then I realized that I forgot to set up my pit stop.
Oof.
So I lost a bunch of time trying to drive and set the pit stop up all at the same time. And at a track like this, where there's not really a long front straight or a long back straight or anything, you're continuously working. So that set me back a little bit. And by the time Gary pulled out the lead, I was just content with second and just started pacing myself. I wasn't even going to try to catch him.
So what are your plans for next season? You finished off the season with 2 second places in the 4 or 5 rounds you've been here this season. You've always been the pace. I've raced against you. I know you can fight for championships. Will you be back for a full season next time?
I will be. Well, I've signed up for next season. I'm hoping that work will allow me to participate. I do travel with my job, so if I'm in town, I'm racing. So I'm hoping to make more races next year than I could this year. So, as always, just looking forward to the next season.
We just got to set you up with a laptop, and you can do some keyboard races when you're not at your rig.
I don't think anybody wants that.
I mean, it would certainly be entertaining for us. I'm all for that. So we'll see if we can work that out. But congrats on a good run at the end of the season, and I hope we do see him for a full season at the end of once next season starts. But we got one more driver to talk to, Matt Scherf. You're finally here to talk to us. Your first podium of the season.
Yeah, finally. It's been a season, first time in here, and I've been getting top 10s a bunch, but I just wanted to finally get up to the top 5 at least, and didn't expect a podium today, so that was awesome.
What do you think made the difference tonight? You said you didn't expect a podium coming into tonight, but I'd say this was probably easily your best race of the season. What clicked so well here?
Just the flow of the track. I felt so good here. We practiced over the weekend. I was really fast, and then even here today in practice, I had a Terrafino, so that's the goal. And I said before the race, I just wanted to beat him, and he spun right in front of me, and then I ended up, obviously beating him, so that was pretty cool.
What's coming in for you next season? I've talked to everybody. It looks like Eric Luke's going to try and come back. Gary's moving up to the Sprint Series. What are you going to do? You going to stick with Fixed, or you think you might move up to the Sprint Series next season?
I will be back in Fixed. I think I'll be in a different car, though. But yeah, I will be back in Fixed for next season.
All right, I look forward to seeing you back, and Brandon and Sam and Barb and everybody in the whole
yeah.
Scherf family.
Yeah, I want to thank all of them and my friends and family. I want to thank Frida Sport and Muradness, Oceana Coffee, Advanced Sim Racing, Ginger Liveries, everybody. They helped me so much all year, and the Vulture guys too. They've been great helping me out, so it's been fun.
The first time we talk to you and you've got all the sponsors ready. That's a sign of a good driver. We'll see you next season, Matt.
All right, thank you.
P3 for Matt Scherf Arjuna. So many drivers. I love talking to every single one of these drivers, and it's always great to talk to people we haven't talked to before this season. I love getting those new voices in, and I'm glad we finally got to talk to old Matt Scherf, the legend of the chat.
And he does it with a great performance at the end of the season as well, so he'll be delighted about that. He definitely started to come on strong over the course of the season as well. Well, we turn the page from the GT3 Fix Series to the GT3 Sprint Series. You asked a couple of the drivers, would they be making the step up? And, well, the one thing that does not change across the two series is the schedule. What does change? 5 minutes added to the race timer, so now these are 40-minute races, and of course open setups for the drivers to tweak and to dial into their preferences and to find the most speed out of. Of course, still a series dominated by the Porsche 911s, but it's an interesting little conundrum that we've got at the front, as I think we've got Sean Campbell getting ready to jump into what will be his 4th different manufacturer of the year.
Yeah, Sean Campbell, I mean, he won in quotation marks last week in the Ford. It doesn't actually count as a win because he was instantly disqualified afterwards because his car-changing shenanigans are actually against the rules. So he's having fun, he's winning on the track, but he's not getting any for the record books. So technically Martin Crisp actually won last week.
Nice. Good to know. So now Martin Crisp is a PRL winner. We should recognize that as well. Woo. And it feels a little bit like in some ways back in, what was it, Brazil 2003 with Kimi and Giancarlo Fisichella, where the trophy was given to one driver, and then afterwards, at the next race, they had this awkward handing of the trophy back over to the other driver. Fortunately, we do get to skip that part of it. Driver standings broken up into Pro and Am, though in this Sprint Series, one of those other changes across of what we had earlier tonight. Vincent Trepanier does lead by 30 points from Diego Morales. Martin Crisp and his teammate Sean Dickinson are tied for 3rd position at the time being. 30 points the margin at the front, Joey. It's an outside chance for Diego Morales. For Vincent Trepanier, he's got to stay out of the trouble.
Yeah, all Vincent Trepanier has to do tonight is finish more than 50% of the laps. If you finish more than 50% of the laps in a PRL race, you get points. If you don't, you get 0 points. You get a DNF. So All Vincent needs to do is finish, and he is mathematically guaranteed to overcome a 30-point gap to Diego Morales, no matter where he finishes, even if Diego wins. So that's not a concern for him. The concern is actually going to be for third place. Martin Crisp, who is a winner somehow after finishing second, is tied with his teammate Sean Dickinson. They're equal on points. They're going to fight for P3.
We'll talk about the team championship in a second, because I think that's got an interesting complexion to talk about as well. But here's a look at the AM championship, where Miguel Angel Fonseca leads over Rob Campbell. It's been consistency in the Audi for the Sim Racing LA Endurance team that has seen Fonseca grab 4 wins in 9 rounds. But of course, we cannot forget, you cannot drop this round of the championship. Same situation as it was for Trepigny, though, as it is for Fonseca, Joey. He's just got to finish 50% of the laps.
And that might be a difficult task at Rudskogen, but I don't think it'll be too difficult for either of these drivers. Even the drivers who crashed in the previous race, unless they were Greg Doucette, who went kamikaze, they still finished the race. So I think it should be no trouble for Miguel or for Vincent. But again, there's a tie between 2 teammates for 4th and 5th. Nathan Deering and Turner Schroll, they're going to fight over that 4th position. Ryan Patrick in 10th place right now. He's kind of been the surprise of the season for me. He fought Nick McLaughlin for the AM Championship last season, and this season's rolled around. He hasn't quite had the same pace, and there's been a few races where he's gotten into trouble. He's going to try and steal P9 from Sean Carmody, but I'd look for Ryan Patrick to come back next season and be back to his old form.
Yeah, and you're already thinking about next season. You asked some of the drivers at the end of that GT3 fixed race about it. These drivers still got to focus, though, on qualifying and the 40 minutes up in front of them. So we've looked at the AM, at the Pro Drivers' Championship. How does that play out, though, when we talk about your team championships? Again, this split up into Pro and AM. It's closer than it's been at the front between the Unit SimSport team and SimCity Racing, but of course that is a battle of 3 versus 2. It is Sean Dickinson and Martin Crisp up against 3 drivers representing that Unit SimSports camp. Don't expect it to change around in this final round of the championship, but just keep your eye on it. While meanwhile in the AM class, closer than the Lunatic Moonlight Speed Racing team would have hoped, a Hardpoint by Delta Sport will look to try and push them all the way to the checkered flag.
I have to imagine that the gang over at RSR by Butt Kicker, they might not be too happy about Sean Campbell throwing away a ton of points, because that's kind of taken them out of the fight for the Pro Championship. I mean, they still get the wins on the screen. I don't think they care too much. They know that Sean has the speed, but they could have been fighting with Unit SimSports and SimCity Racing if they didn't get disqualified for about 100 points.
I know, right? Hashtag blame Sean Campbell. That's what we're talking about
Darn
here.
right.
So back over to some on-track coverage, as once again qualifying, 10 minutes onto the clock. Drivers get 4 laps and the track to themselves. Now, Pro and AM are gridded together, so you're not separated on track, and that's why it is important for Pro cars to make sure they maximize qualifying at the same time for AM cars. The faster they are, if they could put Pros between them and the rest of the field, it will be an advantage on the start. Sean Campbell has confirmed he's jumped into the prancing horse. What does the 488 hold in store for us? We're about to find out. Left side of the screen, you can see the times. It's Martin Crisp, now race winner in this PRL GT3 Sprint Series, that is on the top. 2/10 clear of Diego Morales in AM. It is Blake Ziti in front of Miguel Fonseca by 600th of a second, but blow that out the door. Brett Thurman's here, and he's on top.
I'm glad Brett Thurman and Vincent Trepigny have gone to pole, because I was getting really hungry there with Crisp and Ziti on pole. That was going to get me distracted over the course of the race. So things have gone a little bit more normal. Trepigny was 8 seconds off the pace in his first lap. There was definitely a mistake there, and that's more normal to see Vincent on top, but that's not an unassailable gap. I think Martin Crisp might legitimately be in the conversation for pole here.
I know of baked ZT. What's crisp ZT, though?
Well, you know, like
burnt?
the crispy top of a baked ziti with the cheese that gets all bubbly and crispy, that's the best part.
Well, I just assume that if you're calling it a crispy ZT, then it must, by definition, be more burnt than normal.
It's entirely possible.
I'm just saying, 200 splits Crisp from Trepigny, and then the 2/10 back to Diego Morales. More than a quarter of a second for Brett Thurman in that 69 machine. We watch as the championship leader winds himself up. See if we can check in with Sean Campbell. Now, the other thing about switching cars willy-nilly is it means that Sean Campbell doesn't have the RSR by butt kicker paints, which personally, I'm just saying, I think we should remove another 20 points for that.
Honestly, let's just disqualify him from the full season. We might as well. Just get him down to 0 points at the end of it all. That might be what he deserves.
Brian Vorse up to second in AM in the hard point by Delta Sport entry. Blake ZT jumps in front of Fonseca and Deering as well. Sean Campbell's trying to figure out what he's got. A bit of oversteer to start with.
Yeah, the Ferrari Challenge Series is at Rudskogen this week in the official series. So I don't know if Sean has actually taken any of that as practice, or if that lap right there was literally his first lap in this car at this track. So I don't. It's kind of a mystery as we watch Arnaud Genet here, Vincent Trepannier's teammate, a little bit more in control of the vehicle coming up through the S's than Mr. Sean Campbell was.
Just a bit.
A little bit. You got to be in control through those S's though. You can't get too much speed through one of them because you're off rhythm for basically the entire rest of that sector. You don't get any respite until this little short straight here.
I'm taking points away from Arnaud, by the way, because we get just the single cam today. Although I really do like when you see a car get onto the curbs and the camera just shaking, because that's what Arnaud is experiencing as well. 8 cars, I think have times currently in the Pro class. It's up to 11. Sean Campbell 1.8 seconds off the pace. Fonseca above Deering in AM as Genet will power out of the final corner. Dickinson has bested him provisionally, but can Genet find any improvement? There's a 10th or so in it. It's up to the outside of row 2 for the time being.
I think the only real driver who's still out there, Ryan Pucktel's still out there. He might still have a lap in the books. It'll be interesting to see what Ryan can do here. He's had a solid season. I don't think he's been here for every single one of the rounds. I think he's missed a couple, but for the driver who was the F3 AM champion last season in the GT3 Pro category, he's really shown up my expectations, because I beat Ryan Pucktel at times in the F3 car, and that's not a compliment towards me. Ryan's been showing everybody up in these GT3s, so I think that might be where his talents lie.
And there are a few drivers, by the way, that are crossing over. One name that you and I saw on Sunday night in the Precision Racing League NASCAR Cup Series finale was Mark Kalin. Fair to say he didn't have the best of runs there. It's not been the best of seasons as well, if we're being totally fair as well.
It got worse last night. He qualified third at Road America, and he stalled on the grid.
Oh, no. I was hoping to have not more worse things to say, but Joey's just there with a knife and burying it deeper and working around as much as possible. Sean Campbell is only 7th, and I'm going to say it. I just like seeing Sean Campbell not be at the front because, boy, it's unfair how quick this kid is.
It is unfair, and, you know, some might say, I wish he kind of kept with the Porsche. I wish he kept fighting for the championship, because I'd like to frankly see him where he deserved to be. But Brian Vorse goes to pole in the BMW and AM.
Yeah, that's a hard point by a Delta Sport car that's rocketed to the front. Found 10th and a half over Brett Thurman, and he's 6th overall on the track. Martin Chris, by the way, finishes another lap, but does not set another lap time. That's his qualifying in the books as well. 25 cars lining up here. Of course, fields do tend to reduce in size as you work through the course of these seasons. Not complaining too much about that, Joey, just because, again, less cars, maybe less chaos to talk of as well.
We still had plenty of chaos to talk about with 30 cars in the last race, so I think there will probably be a little bit of chaos, especially with Mr. Con Shamble coming up from 7th on the grid. We've got Brian Vorse, the Vorse of nature, on pole for the first time. That'll be some crazy stuff. So it might be a shorter field, but there's a lot of storylines throughout the field, and there's Mark Kalin coming from the back of the grid. There's going to be a ton of stuff to talk about.
Yes, but you've already buried the knife into Mark Kalin's back. Don't set expectations up too high now for him. Let's take a look at the thing that I think we enjoy the most, which is the fact that we get driver webcams. We're very disappointed that Ted Lowendick has not given us anything entertaining today. Yes, there we go.
Space.
Brett Thurman's ready to go.
Yeah, Brett Thurman's ready to go. I think Ted is in space. That's very interesting. He's hopped on a rocket. I don't think Norway has a space program, but well done, Ted. He's got some Jeff Bezos money, apparently.
I'm still disappointed. Remember Suzuka? Suzuka was much more impressive is all I will say, but we are ready to go for the final time this season. The Precision Racing League GT3 Sprint Series lands at Rudskogen, and this will determine 2 championships. 2 champions that just have to finish 50% of the race. Go Fast time is in the books, and here's how they'll line up. Here in Norway, it's a 1:17.203, and Vincent Trepanier will look to lock in the championship after his 4th pole of the season. Martin Crisp is now a race winner. He'll be on the outside of row number 1 with Diego Morales and Arnaud Genet on row 2. Sean Dickinson, the first of the non-Porsches. And then the AM class pole, Brian Vorst is up on the outside of row 3 in his hardpoint by Delta Sport BMW. That does feel a little bit weird to say, not being in a Porsche. Ryan Pucktel in the FDR Esports 14 and 7th. Brett Thurman second in AM alongside. Sean Campbell 9/10 off in 9th with Kevin Norris alongside. Ted Lowendick and Nick McLaughlin 11th and 12th positions in their Porsches and Mercedes respectively. Blake Ziti in the Long Island Racing Team Audi R8 GT3 has Alex Caruso alongside, while the points leader in AM, Miguel Fonseca, sees Nathan Deering on row 8 alongside. Caleb Lehman and Rob Campbell share row number 9 with Pete Newhook, as well as Ryan Patrick on the edge of the top 20. Marc-Andre Desjardins and then David Morse 21st and 22nd with the SRT Esports 111 of Christopher Rines on the inside of the 24 of Mark Kalin. Just Colin McKenzie at the tail end of the field with 25 cars ready to roll for what is a full formation lap here up in Norway. Expectations then, Joey, as we get set to close out the season.
I hope there's no calamity on the pace laps like there was in the fixed race. There's a little bit of argy-bargy through the S's, a little bit of bumper crunching, but hopefully everybody will be okay in a shorter field here. But short field, there's still all those storylines I mentioned all the same. It is going to be chaotic here, and luckily the pace lap is short, so we don't have to wait for too long, and we don't have to fill with more Norway puns.
To be fair, that would be you filling with your Norway puns, because I have a definite lack of knowledge when it comes to that regard. The cars file their way off the line. Again, remember, 40 minutes in this race, and the difference, not just race length, drivers get a little bit more fuel as well. We go from 40% to 50%, so hypothetically, these cars can now go 30 minutes or so in terms of fuel. We saw a handful be able to stretch a little bit longer, but around 32 minutes in this race, Joey, is when we'd expect drivers to have to come down to pit lane.
Yeah, about then, with a couple of minutes to go. It depends on when you put the Lillehammer down. If you do it a little bit earlier, you might spend a little bit of extra fuel, but yeah, there's a hard limit. You can't do any Long Beach things here. You can't make it to the end. You're going to have to stop, and just like in the previous race, you're not going to want to end up in traffic. With the shorter field, though, you might have a little bit more luck in finding a gap at the back of the field. It's going to be harder to end up in traffic when there's just less cars on the road.
And again, going back to the schedule discussion that we've been having over the season and over today as well. This track very similar to what we saw in the middle of the campaign when passing was at a premium and track position became so important, and we saw that Kenny Duval risked an undercut. It's fair to say it didn't work out maybe in his favor.
Didn't work out for him because I don't think he was really watching his relative that closely. Maybe he didn't have a crew chief working for him. Maybe he was doing it all on his lonesome in the cockpit there, and he just miscalculated it. He ended up behind Brian Hoskins. He ended up getting held up for 2 to 3 laps, and he still had a shot at Scherf, but yeah, it did not work out for him whatsoever. And then everything else also went wrong for him, but that's beside the point.
Just 40 minutes to survive here. It'll be as simple as that. We did see our fair share of drama, Joey. However, I don't think we saw as much as we did in Oschersleben, the other new track this season.
It was far less drama-filled. That's probably good for our voices, and that's probably good that I don't have to wheel out more Norwegian knowledge, because we've just had good racing to watch, and here we go, 40 more minutes.
Speak for yourself. My voice is already well and truly knackered. Trepanier picks up the throttle though. We're racing once again, and Martin Crisp has to go defensive. Diego Morales already passed him on the run into turn number 1. A swap around for second, 2 and 3 wide further back on the run through the left-hand fling, and cars trying to use as much of the track as possible as they dive down the hill in towards turn number 3, with a tidy start with all 24 cars pointed in the right direction.
Everybody pointed in the right direction for now, but this is where it gets difficult. Down there in turns 3 and 4 on those cold tires, it's very, very easy to loop it around into the S's as well. Looks like just about everybody's single file. I saw Blake Ziti peeking out. He might have a pro rivaling him through the chicane there. I think that might have been Kevin Norris. But other than that, we are clean all the way back to P24. I don't see anybody off.
Well, you just had to go and say that, didn't you? Alex Caruso's I say off, but he's had the smallest off you could ever hope for in the field, as strong as this one. There, though, is the big one. Thurman Norris down the hill, high speed, big drama, and now as the cars fly up the hill in towards the final sector of the lap, it's Trepanier feeling the pressure from Morales with Chris Dickinson and Campbell through the top 5. Sean Campbell has had a great start to be able to work himself a couple of spots forward. Alex Caruso has to get on the brakes because he's turned around once again and now at the back of the field.
And David Morse pops out of nowhere as well. That stationary camera in the final corner is really picking up more than we thought it would. It's a battle of the Seans here for P4. Dickinson versus Campbell. Campbell was 4 spots down, or he's 4 spots up from where he started, rather. So he's figuring out the Ferrari. I think this is his practice right now. One of his teammates behind is going to poke out into turn 3, and Diego Morales up front's trying to put the pressure on Vincent Trepanier. There's battles all throughout the field.
Yeah, there is some healthy action, which we like to see. Vorse has got himself separated from ZT, still by Lowendick, so he leads in AM by running in 8th. So much excitement, I have a feeling, still to come, and that's after all the drama on the opening lap. And I'm sure we'll go and get a replay of it, but the first little bit was not so dramatic. It's what kicked off after that ended up being a lot bigger and maybe a lot more noticeable. Let's start by taking a look then at what happened with Alex Caruso. And this just happens as he looks to the inside of the Mercedes, I believe of Nick McLaughlin, because there's no paint scheme on it. And cold tires, I don't think that was really a move to look for.
Yeah, it didn't work out for him. The door closed. This is what happened to our old buddy Brett Thurman on pole, or second in the AM class. Caven Norris, a pro behind, brakes a little bit late, ends up on the curb trying to avoid him in the grass, and then ends up getting back into him. It was a far less severe accident than I thought it was. It was actually only a teensy little bit of contact on the recovery there, but that's 2 very strong drivers out. Caven Norris, I think he knows that he was a little bit of a bowling ball there, and he waited for Brett to come by.
Yeah, it's pretty clear who that one is on. As Caruso and Morse came together, that's why Morse appeared out of nowhere. Back to live pictures, though, with the gap up front up to 1 second, at least for the time being. I've not really seen any on-track movement as we cycled through a couple of the replays on the start, but already with about 3.5 minutes in the books, we've got some separation starting to build through the field. A 5-car choo-choo train try to pull itself away.
Brian Vorse passing the pro Arnaud Genet. Ted Lowendick, also a pro in the background. Brian Vorse is really just showing things up here tonight. The BMW, Ryan Luna in the fixed race did similarly miraculous things in his BMW, so I wonder if the BMW might actually be one of the cars to have here, because quite a few drivers are doing some spectacular things in the BMW as we ride on board with Ted Lowendick here in deep space.
Well, he's so far in deep space that apparently it's taking that much time for the data to be sent back, so we've gone slideshow mode, unfortunately, with Ted Lowendick. I had to throw that in one. There, you set me up.
Lower your ISO, Ted.
You set me up so perfectly for that one. Let's check in on board as well with Nick McLaughlin. I can confirm the stripped down Mercedes is indeed Nick McLaughlin as we ride on board with him. He's in 10th, just inside of the top 10. 9th, of course, in class, but of course, Brian Vorse is looking strong in that BMW.
It's been a tough season for Nick McLaughlin as well. I feel like every time we come to a driver, I just have to say it's been a tough season for them, because it's been a tough season for so many drivers. Nick's going to get a little bit of a move here on Mr. Ted Lowendick, who really opened the door. Ted goes off the road. These two are going to be chatting with each other after the race, I'm sure, but could it be a little bit of a worse chat, because they're having a little bit of argy-bargy here, and Ted gets back by. Blake Ziti's going to get by him as well.
Yeah, Blake Ziti tries to take advantage. Of course, that's an AM car, but he's got to the likes of Caleb Lehman and so many more right up the bumper and hoping to try and work his way on through. Googly eyes, of course, guaranteed to give you about 3 seconds a lap for Caleb Lehman, who rides P3 in class as he runs out of the final corner and is on the back of 2nd in his class.
This is just a very weird amalgam of pro battles and AM battles, and that's kind of why we like this sprint series. That's why we like the pro-AM format. There's a lot of debate in the PRL right now about next season in basically every road series. Will there be a Pro-Am split again in F3, in the MX-5s, in GT4s, whatever, or in GT3s for that matter? There's a lot of differing opinions on that. I think we're gonna have to wait for the community vote on that to see what's actually going to happen. But I kind of like the Pro-Am split. It might make both individual races smaller, but it gives us more interesting dynamics and interesting things to consider when you're in the car fighting for 10th or so.
Top two are starting to pull away. Crisp and Dickinson, of course, came into this round tied on points. They run third and fourth in their team machines. Lowendick around the outside as Genet left him a line, and he tried it. He thought about it. It was not meant to be, at least for the time being, but already you can see the gap that Brian Vorse has been able to clear in his hardpoint by Delta Sport BMW. Like you mentioned, Luna showed some speed in that BMW when Terrafino struggled for once in that BMW M4 GT3 machine. See exactly how it will fare itself out. I will say, by the way, that BMW M4 GT3, not the only BMW M4 in terms of racing, a new GT4 car to be released by the BMW guys next year already has run in its unhomologated version, rather, as it prepares to be homologated for the start of next season. There's the train at 7th on back. Here's the two at the front of the field. Diego Morales running in the tire tracks of Vincent Trepanier.
This looks very, very similar, though. I'm getting deja vu from the last race with Gary Brown and Eric Luke. Diego's in the tire tracks of Trepanier. He's riding with him, but I don't know if that's necessarily enough. I think he needs to be basically completely on the bumper of Trepanier this whole time, just putting the pressure on him if he wants a chance here.
You can hear him saving the fuel. I mean, you just heard how much of the clutch he was, and he's doing it again. He's doing it over and over again. So the horse, or the stall is being set out here in Diego Morales' camp. We check back in with Lowendick, Genet, and McLaughlin because they continue to fight, they continue to brawl, they continue to cost each other time. It's now Lowendick up to 8th.
Now that's a great camera right there. That is a fantastic camera on that Mercedes. Well done, whoever designed that camera pack.
Hashtag blame Tyler Maxon.
Blame Tyler Maxon there. That's just, windshield wiper cam or whatever the heck that was.
To be fair, I will defend Tyler for a moment here because it's the same camera placement that we've got on every single one of the GT3 cars. However, as you'll notice, it works better for some than others just by virtue of where the windshield itself is placed, the number, which I will say, those numbers, along with the ones on the side of the car that IMSA uses, are so useful to try and commentate, Joey, from. I don't know if you've ever had to commentate without having all of the data that we have in the real world, but boy, rather that we have in the sim world, like they do in the real world, but boy, is it a completely different environment.
We did that race for Next Level Racing a couple of days ago, a couple of weeks ago.
A week
with
ago,
all those
exactly
liveried, or those cars that were just painted exactly the same. You can only tell them apart from that little number plate. It's always very helpful. It's small, but you can always see it. And I'm not even gonna say anything here. I'm just gonna let the tape play here.
Sorry, Mark.
Sorry, Mark.
It's not been a good few days for him, has it?
No, I think he's just hoping the 2023 starts. He's still shown up. I respect him for that. He's still shown up to every race. He's still trying to turn things around, but yeah, he needs 2023 to start. Things are not going well for him. Let's see what happened to him up over the top of the hill. He clipped the grass.
I was thinking there's a pro machine behind him. Was he going to get tagged? No, maybe just feeling the pressure from Caven Norris there was Mark Kalin. Down the hill, 10 minutes now or so done in this race. Top two broken away a slight bit more as Sean Campbell gets past Sean Dickinson. Ryan Pucktail locked onto the back of these guys. A 4-car train for the final step of the podium.
And Sean's not done. He's trying to get revenge for his win from last week that he didn't get, that Martin Crisp ended up getting behind him. So he's gonna show it up on Martin Crisp right now, and then once the results sheet comes out, he's gonna lose that position anyway. But he wants to do it while we're looking at him.
Okay, I'm glad that you brought that one back up because I was gonna say he's gonna do all this work and he's gonna get disqualified again, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, because he's switched cars again. He's gonna get disqualified for car cycling, but we still get to see Sean Campbell while he's still alive, so we'll pretend he's actually racing for position.
Class fight, this for 14th or so on track, but 5th or so in the class itself. You got the likes of Pete Newhook mixed up in this one with Rob Campbell, second in the championship, of course. Nathan Deering. Let's talk of your championship leader in AM, by the way, because Miguel Angel Fonseca is running in fourth for the time being and slowly but carefully doing exactly what he needs to do, Joey, which is finish 50% of this race.
He's got quite a gaggle of cars ahead of him, though. I was worried for a second there with Nick McLaughlin and Blake Ziti and Caleb Lehman going through turn one, because they were getting all sorts of squirrely running side by side there, but I think Miguel can focus back and calm down a little bit again now. Caleb Lehman's still peeking to the inside, but no, nobody's doing anything too stupid right now, and Miguel should be fine.
Back up front, where it's now Sean Campbell up to third. I mean, should we be shocked? Should we really be shocked, Joey?
Probably not. I mean, considering I don't think he did a single lap of practice before like 4 minutes to go in qualifying, he's just learning Rudskogen right now in this Ferrari. Maybe he'll win. Can we write him out for the win?
Whoa.
Well, yes, we can write him out for the win because of the rules, but on our screen, he might finish first.
Well, no. When the car's balanced like that and he's still trying to learn the track, I get the sense that those up front, relatively safe. Let's see the lap time this time by. Trepanier with a 1:18.4. Now, he had lost a bit of time last time by. Campbell, a 1:18.8, so about 4/10 slower back in the Packers. I think we've got drivers heading to pit lane. Caleb Lehman is the first to blink.
And Nick McLaughlin as well, which is an interesting twosome of drivers, especially this early. They know that there is a clean track at the back of the field, though. Mark Kalin and Brett Thurman are the two drivers at the back of the field, and they're only, 37, and Brett Thurman's too far back. He's 52 seconds off. So I think McLaughlin and Lehman might find clean track here, and they're basically doing a reverse strategy here. They're getting out of that bunch of cars. They're going to do a 27-minute stint to the end instead of doing a 27-minute stint and then doing 13 minutes to the end.
Look at this. Brian Vorse is closed on this gaggle for fourth in pro. Maybe for next season, Brian's classification, regardless of what series he's in and whether there is pro and am, is going to have to be revisited, because this is some sterling pace, and he has left the rest of the am field in his dust. The gap between Vorse and Ziti up above 5 seconds.
The Vorse of nature, indeed. This is his best race of the season. He's only been here for a couple of rounds this season. He's not been a full-time driver. I think he only showed up about midway through the season eventually to add some more heft to the hard point by Delta Sport lineup, but he's done such a good job tonight. It's been fantastic to see him just driving his way forward through the field, fighting with the pros, and as the two SimCity racing drivers kind of hold each other up, Pucktel and Vorse both get to join him in that battle for fourth.
It's Rob Campbell in this time by, as we have another look at the race leaders. Now remember, Diego Morales is going to try and do this in the pit lane. It's 30 points the gap between these two in terms of the championship coming into this one. You can't drop this round of the championship, so as we mentioned a handful of times today, Joey, Trepanier has to finish 6 more minutes and then he could if he wanted to, park on the side and still claim the championship. We don't expect that to happen, that's for sure.
I still wanted to see him, start from the back, try and drive his way forward through the field, but, whatever. You can qualify on pole, you can go for your win, you can build up your stats in the stat book, whatever you want to do, Vincent, but I still think it'll be a good race for the lead. Diego's definitely got the pace to stick with him, even if he is saving fuel and clutching through the corners, so I don't think we'll see another Gary Brown blowout from Vincent.
I don't believe so either, especially given that it's stuck this close so far when Morales is that committed to the fuel saving. The hard point by Delta Sport 98 has locked onto the back of these drivers, and, well, Sean Campbell is going to give this one a go. It's a 1:18.263 in the RSR by Butt Kicker number 26 compares to a 1:18.6 for your race leaders. So last time by, now clear of those behind, Sean Campbell has already closed to within 4 seconds of your race leaders. 3-way fight incoming at the front of the field. Slightly further back, Arnaud Genet starting to drop like a rock here, Joey.
Yeah, oh no, Arnaud. I don't know what's happening to him. He was so fast in qualifying. Again, it's just such a weird track. You can have one lap pace. You can figure this place out once. And then once the race comes around, it's almost like you forget how to drive this place when you're running around with other cars. It's like everything you've learned in practicing qualifying on your lonesome goes out the window, and you have to relearn the car entirely, relearn how to drive the track, and Arnaud is just really struggling here. He's fallen behind Miguel. He's he would be 4th in AM if he was an AM driver, and he's 9th or 8th in Pro or something. His whole rig shakes thanks to the power of the butt kicker. Yes, a sponsor. He'll recover. I don't know when he will, but he'll figure this place out eventually.
He was doing the fuel saving as well. Plenty of drivers, by the way, are taking liberties with the track limits. So don't worry about that. They are all doing it at this juncture in time. Speaking of Sean Campbell, by the way, that gap down to 3.5 seconds, and he closed another 2 and a bit 3/10 last time alone. He's coming in this Ferrari and he's figuring it out as he goes. We look on board with the man, the office chair connoisseur, as Sean Campbell heads down the hill.
There's a room here at the University of Pittsburgh in Alumni Hall, which is a building from like the 1950s. It's a forgotten room behind the stage that I don't think anybody's used since the 1980s. There's desks stacked in it. There's old papers. There's dust everywhere. There's broken fluorescent light bulbs. And I'm very proud of Sean Campbell for going for that chic of a room that's been forgotten since the 1980s.
Yeah, I was going to say, you laugh, but legitimately it feels like that's the type of room he was in. I think we were both going to a similar kind of point with that. I think this is probably the most focused that we've ever seen Sean Campbell this season. Usually he's got a lighthearted look on his face. He's focused, yes, don't get me wrong, but he knows he's here for some fun. I think this is the first time that Sean Campbell has said, you know what, I'm just going to go for it.
He might as well. He's got nothing to lose here, and there is kind of a stat on the line here. Vincent Trepanier and Sean Campbell are actually tied on 13 wins in the PRL, so whichever one of them wins tonight is going to get the spoils in that little battle there. Unfortunately, we know that can't be Sean Campbell because his win will not count. And what happened to Mark Kalin here? Why do you got to do this to him, Arjuna? Why do you got to show this happening?
Unfortunately, poor Mark Kalin finds himself looped around at the penultimate corner. Alex Caruso in your pro class dives to pit lane, brings it down to the speed limit, and it is a slow speed limit as well. You will want to keep in mind. Almost halfway through this race then, as Mark Kalin will also dive back down onto the lane. We check in with the SimCity teammates. Running 4th and 5th on track with Pucktel and Vors right behind them, and, well, the choo-choo train's going to get longer soon. Lowendick's closing, ZT's closing as well, and while Pucktel's got his issues, this is the opportunity for maybe some of those others to get into the draft.
Pucktel, that was very, very weird. He got off rhythm through the S's. He almost got into the back of Sean Dickinson, and he didn't loop Dickinson around. He didn't hit him. He looped himself around trying to slam on the brakes through the second half of the S's. Coming up here on the top of the hill, boop, and there it goes around. A lazy little spin. He got on the throttle to get himself out of the way, which was very nice of him, but I don't think he was... Oh, he just braked a little bit too late.
Weight transfer, so important in that Porsche 911. Ted Lowendick, he's the one now trying to latch on to the back of Brian Vors, the AM machine. Leads in class, 6th overall, as Sean Dickinson gets in front of his teammate Martin Crisp, as of course that's a position worth a 3rd in the championship right now. Let's not forget what Dickinson and Crisp are effectively fighting over.
You know, 1 position difference, that's all that they need, so advantage Dickinson for the moment, but you can never count out PRL race winner Martin Crisp in a battle like this. He might be just hanging back a little bit, saving a little bit. You never know. And Brian Vors comes on the scene as well. That's going to be a whole new dynamic. Is he going to, if he passes Crisp, if he passes Dickinson, suddenly he's a little bit of a pick in that battle, and that might change everything.
Here's a look at Pete Newhook in the art car, as I've dubbed it. I do wonder if you have an art car like this, do you change it seasonally? Something to keep in mind as we move forward to 2023 Season 1, which is not far away, Joey, from getting underway. Of course, the sign-ups have already opened to anyone who wants to compete across of the PRL competitions.
Indeed, there's a lot of series that are kind of full. I think the NASCAR series and some of these GT3 series have mostly filled up. I think there might still be a few spots, but in the MX-5 series, in the GT4 series, in the IRO4 series on Thursdays, there's a ton of series that still have plenty of open spots for anybody who's interested. There's tons of action in the MX-5 series, of course, and that could definitely use some drivers who are interested in MX-5. So anybody who is not a member of the PRL community who's been interested in racing, there's still plenty of opportunities.
And don't worry, most importantly, Joey is no longer allowed on the racetrack because he has been confined and shackled into the RaceSpotTV commentary booth for all PRL events.
I was getting jealous at Long Beach this season in the F3 cars. I wanted to be back out there, but you know, other than that, I think it's it's probably better that I'm up here. Takes less time to practice for doing these commentaries than it does to do 4 hours of practice to be on PRL pace in F3.
You practice your commentary?
Yes, in the shower.
Okay,
I just
good.
imagine.
Yeah,
I
yes.
imagine that you're there, Arjuna. I imagine that Sean Campbell's there too, and I just shout words in the shower head.
I'm gonna get in trouble now with the with various HR regulations here in the U.S.
Oh dear.
Just be careful, Joey. The people listening, Martin and Chris, still on pace with Sean Dickinson, and of course, don't forget we may see a bit of a swap around when it comes to the cycle of pit stops, for which these drivers are due probably in about 9 or so minutes' time, as they cross the line yet again. And you know, we're wrapping up this Precision Racing League, the debut season of the or rather the second season of the Precision Racing League here on RaceSpotTV. And Joe, you've been a part of this for so long, but part of what makes it such a cool thing is not just the bevy of competitions, like you mentioned, across of NASCAR, various road racing disciplines, and all sorts of different things, but the community behind it as well, which is such a big thing in sim racing. Whether you are at the top level trying to find your team that will take you to the next level, or you're just trying to have some fun on a Tuesday evening with some friends out on a virtual racetrack.
Yeah, there is absolutely. The community here is more community-esque than any sim racing community I think I've ever seen. It's like a family. It's certainly felt like that in every single series, and it's not just in the individual series. It's not like there's little cliques. There's the NASCAR guys, there's the GT3 guys. No, it all blends together. That's helped by the fact that a lot of drivers kind of go across disciplines, like Mark Kalin, who races in 4 different series every season. But you know, at the end of these Tuesday nights, sometimes there's a little bit of a gaggle of drivers who show up for a little bit of post-race chat, a little bit of post-race shenanigans, and you see people showing up from this series, from the trucks, from F3, from whatever. It's all a big community.
Joey's a part of the instigating party for these PRL after parties. Potentially. No accusations being leveled. You're 17 minutes to go. Gap at the front up to 1 second. Now remember, Morales has been saving fuel all this while. At this point, you can likely have already started to turn the wick up a little bit, as there was a puff of smoke. I think David Morse may be locking up.
That was Sean Campbell.
Was that Sean Campbell?
He made a mistake. He's human.
He's human. Oh, it's good to see. And there's a smile on his face now.
He's a masochist. He gets pleasure out of making mistakes, apparently. But that's kind of disappointing. He was bringing the gap down. We were going to have a 3-car battle for the win there. He's still got time, but he's extended it a little bit.
Who knows what happens in the pit lane as well, because even though these GT3 cars are relatively, I don't want to say identical, but similar in fuel usage and whatnot, there's always differences in driving styles as well. I think it's officially official now, so we can congratulate both Vincent Trepanier and Miguel Angel Fonseca on their championships, as they have finished half the race as we head into the final 16 minutes of the season.
Vincent's definitely still got some work to end the season on a high, though, because Diego's not letting him go. Morales has actually been consistently quicker every single lap than Vincent Trepanier, so that almost makes me wonder if Vincent is doing exactly the same fuel strategy that Morales is, if he's saving a little bit of fuel up front while he can, because he has that little bit of a gap. I don't know. Things might even out when they decide to come in, but we still have about 8 good minutes of fuel left in these cars. These things can go for quite a while, and I still don't think we'll see either of these 2 drivers come in, because they'll end up right behind Christopher Ryan's in traffic if they do right now.
So I tell you what. Oh! It's academic! Diego Morales was trying to pile the pressure on, but maybe broke himself. He'll drop to 3rd. Sean Campbell will scoop up 2nd, and Vincent Trepanier is now at the front of the field with no one in the rear view mirror.
And there goes the battle for the win in the pit stops. It's all out of the way now. Vincent can go for a little bit of a track day for the moment and hope that Sean Campbell doesn't bring that gap down. We didn't get to see Sean Campbell's mistake. We will see Diego Morales' mistake here up over the curb. There's that weight transfer again. He did well to lock it down. It could have been far worse, but we ride on board with him right as he hops over the curb. Just that little bit of a hop. It transfers everything. The rear end goes around. He did well, again, to lock it down, to slow everything down, to recover. He only lost 7 seconds. He could have lost far more, but he's not going to be happy.
No, and that's, but at the end of the season as well, he'll walk away with 2nd. He's, been inside the top 5 in 7 of the previous 9 rounds, looking to make that 8 out of 10. He's had a pole, he's had a win, 2 fastest laps. Vincent Trepanier just unfortunately has been that little bit faster this time around, but of course, changes coming to these cars. Who knows what will happen when we hit the track at the start of the next season, Joey? And who knows, more pertinently, I think here, what car are people going to be in? Because right now it is dominated by Porsches, but imagine what will happen if the seas part and there's a new contender that emerges in 2023.
Ford.
No, that's maybe 2025 when we get the GT3 car, hopefully.
Oh, I'm not talking about the new GT3
no, I know.
car. I'm talking about the old classic. I think it's going to revive itself. It's going to be a Ford revival. Ford versus Ferrari, something like that. It'll be great.
Yeah, where's Ethan Bass? You missed Sean Campbell in the Ford, didn't you?
I mean, I saw a couple of seconds of it. I was looking at the broadcast.
Yeah, but you did miss it, didn't you? Unfortunately. And I had Lorenzo Bonder alongside last week, but because you were having some fun with the next level racing guys, yeah. I forgot about the... I did forget about Sean's dalliance with the Ford, I will be completely honest.
Well, actually, it never happened. He didn't do anything. Martin Crisp won.
Yes, fair. Well, it happened. It just counted for nothing. You call it a mistake, but... I mean, in terms of mistakes, this is a lot less impactful than the one that Diego Morales had. The Ferrari, of course, mid-engine car, known for sometimes being a bit unstable on the weight transfers if you're not using the pedals and inputs appropriately. Campbell does a good job to save it.
And he did a very good job of saving it. Any other driver, frankly, probably would have lost it there, especially when they moved over to the transition between the actual track and the runoff there. That can easily loop the car around, get you a little bit of an ollie on there and screw things up. Here's Sean's teammate finally getting by Brian Vorse again. Vorse had a ton of short run speed. I wonder if this is this finally him showing his more AM qualities than the pro qualities? Has he used his stuff up too early?
Starting to get bullied a little bit. Blake ZT now, you can see in his Audi, only about 2 seconds back in the battle for the AM class victory with 12 minutes to go. Might be wise for Vorse to think about a pit stop potentially and cool the tires off. You're not going to do much to the tires. I'm not saying that it's the equivalent of getting a fresh set of boots on the car, Joey, but even trundling down the pit lane and giving the tires a bit of a break can help to bring them back into some sort of normalcy.
It is definitely a help, especially if you end up in that sort of endless cycle of overheating where you might have had like a little bit of a slide and that overheats the rear tires one time and you're basically constantly turning at this track. There's a couple of short straights, but other than them, there's very, very little time to cool those tires down. So once that pit stop comes around, that's going to be some very needed respite, some very needed break for those tires, if that is what's going on with Brian Vorse.
So Ted Lowendick sets his sights forward on Martin Crisp, who's lost about 1.3 seconds to his teammate Sean Dickinson, who in that SimCity Racing BMW just looking a little bit stronger, or at least for the time being. Sean Campbell, by the way, has brought the gap down for the race lead to about 3.5 seconds. So he's trying to keep Trepignet honest, as I think Trepignet is going to wind through the final corner to extend the run. Campbell will go one lap further as well. I think we're going to see them in, if not the next time, maybe the time after that.
They can't go much further, and Morales, Dickinson, Crisp, Lowendick, Vorse, ZD just go all the way back down to 17th place. Nobody seems to want to come in on this lap, so that tells me that there's definitely a safe 2 or even 3 laps to go on fuel. If nobody's bringing it in right now, nobody who is being especially aggressive on the fuel has to come in. There's definitely some time to wait, but Ted Lowendick's not going to wait behind Martin Crisp here. He's kind of turned things up here later on in the run. He faded back a little bit. He was fighting with Nick McLaughlin. He was fighting with some AMs, but he's found his old buddy Martin Crisp in another Porsche now, and he seems much quicker than him.
Oh, and, well, he thought about it, that's for sure. We jump on board, and, well, from deep space, we actually get some pictures this time, or a video, rather, instead of the slideshow that we were getting before, as we jump on board with the RSR by Butt Kicker machine. You can see those lines on the inside where drivers have been trying to attack to the inside. I don't think Martin Crisp is going to throw too much of a defense forward here. Crisp will slot in and try and hold track position in front of Brian Vorse, but you're right. I think plenty of cars and drivers starting to struggle on tires here, Joey, which is maybe somewhat surprising when you look at these weather conditions, because they're about as cool as you can get, not just in iRacing, but across of the entire sim racing world.
Well, this is basically exactly what you'd expect from Norway. You know, if I'm thinking about a racetrack in Norway, if it was like 90 degrees, I'd be pretty concerned. That means some bad climate change things are happening. But in iRacing, 66 degrees Fahrenheit, that's par for the course here for a nice May day in Norway, and I think that's going to be very, very good for a lot of these drivers. Even the likes of Brian Vorse, who might be overheating a little bit at the back, might be struggling a little bit with tire wear. It could have been far worse if we were at any other track in any other country.
So less than 10 to go, still waiting for the drivers to head down pit lane. As we hear the rumble of the Porsches and the BMWs working their way through. I think I said this earlier this season, but now having heard a few of these GT3 cars in person, the Porsche sounds great. A lot of the turbo cars don't sound that good, if I can just be totally blunt. But when you hear the Lamborghini in person, my God, you can hear it coming from a mile away. It is glorious, the song of that engine. It makes me sad that we don't have too many more of them. Of course, so many of your GT3 cars coming in 2023. Apart from the Evo 2 of the Huracan, the Lamborghini Huracan, are going to be in that turbo-powered variety. Still, no takers down onto the pit lane just yet. Sean Campbell has brought the gap to the lead down to around 3.3 at the line, but he's struggling now. Trepignet starting to build up the tempo once more.
I wonder if I may be proven wrong here. Maybe somebody at the back or somebody at 5th or 6th or something, or maybe even Arnaud Genet in 10th, they might be thinking, maybe we can extend this to a 0 stop. Maybe we can do this to the end of the race. So I don't know. If you got nothing to lose, if you're fighting for 10th anyway, if you're Arnaud Genet, maybe he's trying that. Maybe that isn't a lack of pace from him. Maybe that is a legitimate fuel strategy, because we're getting late in the run. You'd only have to save... I say only. You'd only have to save 4 or 5 laps. That's a lot of laps to save, but who knows? Maybe it's possible.
Well, I think the way to look at it is you're trying to save 10 minutes of fuel. Don't look at it in terms of lap times. Again, 50% tank capacity for these GT3 machines, right around 60 liters across the board for most GT3 cars, which tend to have 120 liters in a standard FIA fuel cell in various positions around the car. It tends to get you about an hour, maybe a little bit less. So if they're saving fuel, they're saving a lot of it. Now, total pit lane time works out at around 38 seconds. Hard to calculate the exact delta from that, though, by the nature of where pit entry is off to the left, a little bit longer of a lap, and pit exit is a little bit shorter because you cut part of the opening corner. Ted Lowendick, though, is one car that we know is not going to be making the nose stop. So is Miguel Angel Fonseca, because here come the flurry of takers to pit lane.
Peter Newhook joins the quilt as well. Colin McKenzie is also on pit road. I don't think he ever actually got out of the box. I think he's just been parked on pit road this whole time. But
yes,
them 3 are in. Shouldn't be very much fuel. Yeah, 6 seconds of fuel for Ted Lowendick. He's definitely been saving. Not a long stop for him, but Philippe Magnan of Unit Sim Sports in our YouTube chat suggests that some drivers might be going for a no stop. I don't know if that's a true statement. I don't know if he's throwing us off or just listening to the commentary, but if anybody's going to do it, it would be a Unit Sim Sport driver in Arnaud Genet.
I'm just saying, you saw how much some of these drivers are saving as well. That's not light fuel saving. That is heavy fuel saving. So I would not be shocked, as well David Morse is trying not to shock some drivers with his rejoin, as Sean Campbell says, well, I'm not doing the no stop, I'm going to come down to pit lane, as Trepignet continues to punch in the lap times. 6 minutes to go. Plenty are trying to throw the dice at the strategy cards.
They're just trying to go for as long as humanly possible here. It might be like a fuel mileage race here. We might see some drivers running out in the final lap. That might be what happens here, because I think if you've gone this long, will you ever come in? I don't know, but there's David Morse going around again. That was actually in front of Blake Ziti.
Yeah.
Vorse was a lapped car. Ziti was actually fighting, or Morse rather. Morse and Vorse, that's confusing, but Ziti does get on the brakes, doesn't hit him, but that did separate him quite a bit from Brian Vorse.
More Vorse for your Morse there, as Vorse and Ziti are down on pit lane, leaving Trepignet, Morales, Dickinson, Chris, Genet, and Campbell.
Brian left the tires checked, I think.
Oh no, Brian Vorse, after what was a amazing first into the race. I think Joey is right. Maybe as well potentially speeding on entry. That's the other possibility. Yes, black flag. So he has sped on entry. That's why he's going to be held for, in total, what will add up to around 42 seconds. Now, Miguel Angel Fonseca has inherited the lead of this race, but by no means is this done and dusted. Blake Ziti is right on the bumper, and the championship leader, the championship-elect, has 3 minutes or so, 3 laps or so, I should say, to hold on to grab the championship with a win.
I laugh because Miguel is living up to the Angel in his name, because that is miraculous what he's done here. He was nowhere. He was fighting for third. We weren't even talking about him, and suddenly after the pit cycle, he finds himself in the lead, and he looks as comfortable as ever. This has happened so many times this season where, well, there's a mistake into turn 10. He's gonna recover from that, I think, but it's happened so many times this season where he hasn't been the fastest driver in qualifying. He's been like 3rd or 4th or something, and then suddenly after the pit cycle cycles around, he finds himself in the lead, and he doesn't look back. It's just been incredible what he's done in AM this season.
Check in with your race leader, Vincent Trepanier, down the hill with 4 minutes to go. Now, has Trepanier also saved enough fuel, I wonder? Is that why we saw Campbell closing in such massive steps and leaps? Was it maybe not the pace that... was it maybe not us... Was it maybe not speed out of Campbell? Was it maybe a lack of speed from Trepanier and Morales trying to go for the no-stop? Eventually, I got my words out there. Yes, just a reminder, you can vote on me for Commentator of the Year in the VCO Simi Awards, especially given my amazing diction and grammar.
I voted for John Hindhoff.
I mean, so would everyone.
He wasn't even nominated, but I wrote him in.
You know, it was so cool on Sunday. We knew John was going to join us for at least 10 or 15 minutes, but the way it works with John is if you get him talking about racing, he's going to stay talking about racing. And so I did the wisest thing that I could do, which was tell John, look, here's a link. You can follow the broadcast as things are going on. And so instead of 10 or 15 minutes, John showed up an hour earlier than agreed and ended up staying for about an hour and 40 minutes of a 2-hour and 40 race. It was the most special thing you can experience. So many comments about it. And yeah, I agree. John Hindorf for Sim Racing Commentator of the Year, because it is such a level of confidence that he brings and credibility as well, right, Joe? When John Hindorf says that sim racing is real, it's just like racing, even if the cars aren't real, you know it means something.
Especially when it's in his voice, you know, he could say anything. Arjuna could say anything, John Hindorf can say anything, and somebody will take it seriously.
I wish to be compared with John Hindorf is something special. I was. It's crazy. Yeah, it's so cool.
Darn accent.
It's so cool. I don't know how you got introduced to endurance racing, Joey, but for me it was Truth in 24, the series of documentaries that Audi put forward in the midst of their incredible run at the Circuit de la Sarthe. It was narrated by Jason Statham, which is how I started to watch it, but it was John Hindorf that was in there that was kind of gluing the pieces together and adding in all the context rather that he does on the radio as well, right? And that's how I fell in love with endurance racing. It's what got me interested in iRacing, because of Le Mans and the special event that we've had over the past years. And to have now come full circle, it is well and truly crazy, and John is the biggest supporter of sim racing. Going to come to the white flag in a moment. I think Vincent Trepanier has done enough here.
I mean, he can only hope right now. If everybody in the top 5 here is able to make it to the end on fuel, that'll be pretty insane. But this is going to tell us everything here. If Vincent has to come down for a little bit of a splash this time, that means he and everybody else can't make it. He's very, very wide in turn 13. Does that mean he has to come in? Heck no. He's going around. Does he have enough fuel for one more lap? This is the question.
He's been running that line the last handful of laps, and I noted it and I filed it away because I didn't want to fool myself. Vincent Trepanier leads the no-stop gamble. I did bring it up, wondering if it was a possibility. I did not think it was a reality. However, Trepanier, Morales, Dickinson, and Crisp, as well as Genet, are looking to show that fuel saving from minute number 1 was the right call, as Trepanier looks to grab the championship as well.
It's good to be proven wrong sometimes, because it means we get to see spectacular stuff like this. It was Guillaume Levesque, who is not with Unit Sim Sports in the PRL anymore. He has more pressing things to do over in the 24-hour series esports side. He couldn't come with us this season, but he was the driver who shocked us all at Long Beach, going 40 minutes on no stops with no stop for fuel. And now Vincent Trepanier is going to pick up the reins, and also all the SimCity guys are going to match him as well, and Diego Morales for We Race Esports. So
Well,
everybody in from Porsche and BMW, they've been able to pull it off.
I do wonder as well, will Crisp and Dickinson fight as they wind their way to the line? What a way to close the chapter on 2022 Season 4. Vincent Trepigny will grab the championship with a dominant victory from flag to flag, a fuel-saving masterclass at the front of the field. It's a 5th victory of the season. It takes Trepigny in front of Sean Campbell in the PRL winner's book. Trepigny, your 2022 Season 4 champion, a well-deserved title as well. We'll wait for Miguel Angel Fonseca to come across the line to grab his AM-Class championship with the win as well, but it is fitting that Joey, to grab the championships, the most consistent drivers over the course of 10 weeks, will win to close out the season.
It just makes sense. It makes sense that the most consistent drivers are indeed the most deserving. Blake Ziti as well, going to come home in second to finish off a very good season for him. And Martin Crisp up ahead did, by the way, beat Sean Dickinson to the line. I think Dickinson ran out of fuel, so Martin Crisp will be 3rd place in the championship, but Miguel Angel Fonseca, I don't know where he's going to end up in the global standings, but in the AM standings, that's what matters to him. He flashes the lights, he pumps the old fist. He's done exactly what he needed to do, and more.
It was a bit of a delayed pump of the fist. Brett Thurman, by the way, will run out of fuel on his way to the line, so he's not the only one. Rather, Dickinson, not the only one, as, well, breathe in, breathe out. That's all that you can do, as Brett Thurman will finish this race. Finish this race 5th in class, 15th overall. My word, I don't know what it is about new tracks, Rudskogen and Oschersleben, that have made it difficult for me to get my words out. Of course, the reality of many drivers doing the no-stop here, Joey, is we're not getting any burnouts for Vincent Trepigny to close off the championship.
You just got to do a coast around the track. I think we did get a little bit of a burnout from Miguel Angel Fonseca there. We got about half a burnout, which is
he did pit,
which is as much as we can ask for.
He did pit, though, so he had a little bit more fuel in the tank. Let's run you down through the race results for the final time this season, and what a season it has been. Vincent Trepigny, 15-odd seconds clear of Diego Morales. Yes, assisted by the mistake from the We Race Esports number 22, but at Unis Sim Sports number 87 was able to save fuel by punching the hole in the air. A dominant drive on the way to the championship. Martin Crisp does grab the final step of the podium and grabs 3rd in the championship in front of Sean Dickinson, his teammate, while Arnaud Genet finishes 5th. 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the championship. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the end of the season. Sean Campbell then finishes in 6th, although again he will drop out of existence when we comes to those final official race results. In front though of his teammate in the RSR by Buttkicker camp for Ted Lowendick. Then your AM-Class champion, and he does it with a victory on the road. Miguel Angel Fonseca grabs win number 5 of his season as well, in front of Blake Ziti and Caleb Lehman to grab the championship, with Nick McLaughlin, Pete Newhook, Alex Caruso, Caven Norris, and then Brett Thurman, top 15 combined. Deering, Deschardins, Puctel, Rines, and Vorse all through the top 20. Brian Vorse, with that speeding penalty, will be rightfully frustrated, but showed plenty of speed here today. Rob Campbell, David Morse, the final finishers with Ryan Patrick, and then Mark Kalin and Colin McKenzie, rounding out the field of 25 drivers that close out this 2022 Season 4 in the Precision Racing League GT3 Sprint Series. Well, it's that time when we wrap things up, and to do so we will chat with the drivers. It's made slightly easier by the fact that we have one driver that has won the championship and has won the race, and Joey Tebben is going to chat very quickly with Vincent Trepigny as well as Arnaud Genet.
Indeed, we have the 2 Unit Sim Sports drivers, but of course, first and foremost, Vincent Trepigny, your 3rd championship in the PRL, a win tonight. I heard you guys have something planned coming up here.
Yeah, I'm very happy. That was just amazing for me.
Your old teammate Alex Fournier sent me a message before the race. There's a victory celebration that you guys are apparently supposed to do.
Do you want a song?
Absolutely.
Are you ready, Arno?
Yeah, do it.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, go. We
are
the
champions, my friend.
friends. Bam, bam, bam. And we
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I think I legally have to cut you off after like 15 seconds, so the old copyright people don't come after us. But Vincent, congratulations on a great season. Arnaud, congratulations on a great season as well. And we look forward to seeing you guys fighting for more championships in the future.
Totally. Was a blast tonight.
Was a blast indeed. Arnaud Genet and Vincent Trepanier, the pair of Unit Sim Sports drivers. And Vincent Trepanier, that was his 3rd championship. That ties him with Nick McLaughlin for the most championship-winning GT3 driver in the PRL. We got another champion with us right now, another champion who won this race, Miguel Angel Fonseca. First of all, you were running in 3rd all race, and then suddenly you found yourself in the lead after the pit cycle. How the heck did that happen?
Well, I jumped CD in the pit cycle. I don't know why I was first, so I don't know what happened to the guy that was on first. I need to see the replay to watch that.
It was Brian Vorse. I think he actually got a penalty for speeding.
Oh no, so unfortunate.
Unfortunate for him, but ended up being fortunate for you. Your first championship ever, your best season ever, probably with 5 wins. What's coming up next season for you? Are you going to stay in AM? You think you're going to move up to pro? What's going to happen?
I hope they move me up to pro. That's on the administration, so I hope that's it.
All right, well, congrats on your first championship, Miguel. Enjoy it, and we'll see you back in about 3 weeks.
Thank you, guys.
Miguel Angel Fonseca, AM champion, but the hits keep on coming. We've got Martin Crisp here with us. That's PRL winner Martin Crisp, by the way, from last week. But P3 tonight, you beat your teammate Sean Dickinson, and you just got 3rd in the championship.
Yeah, Sean and I were neck and neck the whole season long. So we talked about it before the race. It's like we just can't take each other out. We just had to be not too aggressive and not lose points. So it worked out. My fuel per lap gauge was all wrong the whole race, so I was saving too much, and then I realized that at the end, so I was able to close the gap and get it done.
Did Sean run out at the end, or did you guys just tussle it out regular
No,
style?
I got by him like the 3rd last corner on the inside, and then he ran out of gas on the straight. I coughed just as I went over the line, but it was tight on fuel, and I'm upset that my dash was so wrong, because it was wildly variant from like 1.79 liters to 1.5 or 1.49 liters, and it seemed to not correlate to how much I was pushing or not. So in the end, I just said, well, I think I've saved enough. I got to go because I got to be ahead of Sean.
Worked out perfect timing for you, though. Congrats on the podium to end out the season, and I think we'll see you back in next season as well.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it, and congrats to Sean as well. He's a great teammate, and it's good to battle it to the end.
Great things over at Sim City Racing there. One more driver, 2nd place in AM, Blake Ziti for Old Long Island Racing Team. Another great season for you, or probably your best season ever, if I had to say it from my perspective.
Hey guys, definitely my best season, but I have a lot of work to do. I had a couple of DNFs that were my fault, one that wasn't, and can't really do anything in a championship if you get a couple of DNFs. So, but congrats to Miguel. That was a great race.
We look forward to next season with you as well. I saw that you'll be signed up, so you think you can take this momentum into next season? You think you can fight for the AM championship?
Absolutely. If I could clean up the finishing the races and just stay in it at the end, I believe so. I think I have the pace to at least compete for the AM championship. Yes.
All right. Well, we'll see you back next season then, indeed, and you'll keep making me hungry every time I see his name. But looks like that's everybody we get to talk to this season. Arjuna, what a way to finish things out. The 2 champions end up on top. That seems to be the thing. I'm getting like you now. That's the way things should have ended.
I'm telling you, English is difficult, especially when you've already had to talk for
We should have just done this in Norwegian.
But
jeg snakker ikke norsk.
Oh boy, let's not even think about that. I was going to say I've done 15 hours of talking this weekend already, so poor people on VCO esports have really had to deal with my voice. You had to deal with me on short notice this past Sunday. Let's say goodbye to everyone. Let's wrap up what an incredible season it has been. Tuesday night GT3 doubleheader is always exciting, and like you said, maybe the best race of the season was the first one at Road America with the GT3 Fix Series.
That was one of the best races of the season, the best races in PRL history, but there was so much action over this entire season, and I cannot tell you how excited I am again for next season. I'm already looking at the sign-ups for next season. I saw, a legend of the PRL, Carl Modoff, is signed up to be back for the old GT3 Sprint Series, so that'll be good to see him in action, taking on, You know, your usual suspects, your Ted Lowendicks, your Martin Crisps, your Sean Campbell will not be in this series next season. He's going NASCAR racing, so that'll be different from him. And then, of course, you know, the fixed series. They've got all the usual suspects are back there. Eric Luke, Terrafino. Does that not sell it for you? Come back in 3 weeks. It's going to be great.
What a season it has been, but the championship showdowns are not done in this 2022 Season 4 of the Precision Racing League. Still plenty to come, so stay tuned to RaceSpotTV and to VCO Esports for the rest of all the action. For now, we bid you farewell. What a way to close off the championship here with the second newest track on the schedule. Rudskogen was sure to deliver some drama, and drama was delivered, including a no-stop race that saw the top 5 in the championship finish top 5 on the road. 3 weeks from today, the drivers will start the journey all over again, but for now, it is time to say goodbye. For everyone at RaceSpotTV, alongside Joey Tebben, my name is Arjuna Kenkipati. Thank you for joining us over the past 10 weeks. We'll see you to do it again in 2023.